Yeah, no. No, no one from supposed to be up there.
And we are adjourned. Thank you for a great meeting. It was wonderful. I appreciate everybody. We'll see you.
On the mic. Hi, everyone. How are you? It's amazing to see everyone in person. Incredible. Thank you for being here. No, but just this is our first in person of this board. Yeah. Yeah. So how delightful to see everyone. Welcome, alternate Bybee. We'll be getting to that very next, which is we're going to start with our roll call. May we have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we do the roll call, I'd just like to say that we're happy to be back here in person, but we're doing a hybrid meeting.
Okay.
And so if we run into some technical difficulties, I hope you'll have patience with us. We'll try to get them resolved as quickly as possible.
Could you just tell us how this hybrid meeting is going to work?
Sure. Folks are able to log on to the Zoom webinar and participate in that way. And so if we have digital public commenters, we can hear from them. Also, staff from the jurisdictions, if there's items that they're involved with, they can weigh in from their offices.
From their offices.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So how do they signal that they want to talk? And how do we see them?
For each item, we'll bring those participants we know about into the webinar as panelists. And so then our clerk, Damien, will let us know if they want to speak.
Okay. And then, but can we see the people, will we see a picture of the Zoom room, is my question, I guess.
We won't see the Zoom room, but we'll see this presenter view. So if they're
Okay.
speaking, we'll see them.
Okay, perfect. All right,
Great,
well,
okay.
with that, we will commence with a roll call, please.
All righty. Vaughn Hartung? Here. Naomi Dewar?
Here.
Jenny Breckus? Here. Jean Herman?
Here.
And Charlene Bybee for Ed Lawson. Welcome back.
Here, thank you.
Donald Abbott?
Here.
Alexis Hill?
Here.
And is it Christopher Dare for Diane Vanderwell?
Here.
Devin Reese? Absent. Bonnie Weber? Here. And non-voting member Kurt Thigpen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you so much, and thank you alternates for making time to come. That's really nice. Our next item is salute to the flag, and I want to invite one of our alternate guests, which is Charlene Bybee, to lead us in the pledge.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay, and then I also did want to note, Mr. Thigpen, I think this is your, is it correct? Your meeting? The meeting that you're,
My last meeting, yeah.
and we are going to miss you. So I think the school board will make a different appointment, I assume, at some point, but we've enjoyed having you nonetheless.
Yes, thank you. I've enjoyed my short time and getting to know you all, so thank you very much.
It's quite the action board over here, I will say. Our next item is approval of the agenda, and I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And next, we're looking for motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second?
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
I will need to abstain because I was not in attendance at that meeting, so please mark me as an abstention.
Okay.
Ditto.
And ditto? Okay, let me just turn to our attorney. I always do this when people want to abstain, just so you know. So may people abstain? Or is it, if you're absent, is that a good reason to abstain?
Madam Chair, for the record, Norm Azevedo, abstention is appropriate if they're not present at the meeting of the minutes they're seeking to be approving.
Thank you so much. I love to just get that on the record, so. All right, so we did have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Next item is public comment, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Jeremy, and you're probably going to hand it to someone else to manage this. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Clerk Kerwin, do we have any public comment for this item?
We've received no digital public comment, and I have received no public comment cards here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, okay. Well, with that, we will close public comment, and we're going to move to our consent agenda, and there's only one item. I wonder, does anyone want to discuss this item? Or at least get any board input on it before we just take our motion for consent?
This is the consortium report?
This is the shared work program.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
I think we can just get a
Motion
motion.
to approve.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. On to our business of the day, and we do have quite a few items. Jeremy and I studied this pretty hard to figure out whether we could fit in all these items. We haven't been together like this for a while, and there's some stuff that's backlogged. So some of it's pretty simple, and some will take some discussion. So we'll start with item A, which is consideration and possible ratification of the recommendation of the Washoe County Home Consortium directors for the allocation of the Nevada Affordable Housing Trust funds. And there's an amount of almost $600,000 to fund the City of Reno Rental and Deposit Assistance Program, home funds to the Atavar, is that how you say that? Tavari, Senior Apartments, Centennial Park, Orvada Street, Senior Apartments, Pinewood Terrace, Vintage at Spanish Springs, Senior Apartments, and Washington Station, Senior Apartments, affordable housing projects, and that is about $1.5 million. And then we have item 3, Community Housing and Development Organizations recertification for Ridge House and Northern Nevada Community Housing, and the NNCH's Truckee Heights project. And together, those were recommended for just about $21,000. So will you walk us through this? And there's another special item that I hope you'll take some time on, the affordable housing
I
trust.
have a quick question on that.
Yes,
Sorry, I obviously am very new to this conversation.
yes.
But looking at this, there's an obvious, how do people get involved with this? Why is Sparks is not represented as getting it? I'm just,
Yeah.
the question has to be asked. So is it that they don't know about it? That they're not
No, they
qualified for it?
do know about it. So I'm going to just have Jeremy give an overview. Everyone knows about it and they apply. And do you want to talk a little
Okay,
bit
thank
about
you.
this?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Actually, I wouldn't mind asking Tracy potentially to stand up. I think you're the leader of the Home Consortium, right? So you could maybe give us an overview of what's going on.
For the record, Tracy Wheeler, Management Analyst with the City of Reno. I'm also Washoe County Home Consortium staff. The Washoe County Home Consortium, for just a brief edification, was established by the 3 jurisdictions in 1994 through an interlocal agreement to further create and preserve affordable housing and affordable housing-related opportunities. We do have a presentation. Shawnee and I have that put together for all of you, and it will go over all of our projects. However, the consortium annually has a request for proposal process that is provided to all the housing developers in the community. In addition, the Washoe County Home Consortium is represented by staff from each jurisdiction. So each jurisdiction has a technical proficient individual on the consortium, and we also have representation from regional planning, who is Shawnee Sousa, and we have members from the community as well.
I think it would be good to have a brief presentation since many people are newer on the board, not just our alternates, but other people are new too. And this may be the first time they are voting on such a thing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have Shawnee Sousa, Regional Planner for this item, and accompanied by Tracy Wheeler.
Good afternoon, board members. Shawnee Sousa, Team RP for the record. This item is in regards to the Washoe County Home Consortium funding ratification. We are going to get into some of the background as well, as Tracy mentioned, as well as an introduction to the Team RPA Affordable Housing Tracker. So Tracy just covered a little bit of this, but the WCHC was formed in an intergovernmental agreement between Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County in 1994. This was done in an effort to provide more affordable housing. The WCHC receives and administers home funds and also provides a forum for discussion on goals as well as issues within the region. To implement these goals, the intergovernmental agreement further establishes the TRC, or the Technical Review Committee. They are tasked with making funding recommendations to the directors. The directors are the city managers as well as the county manager. This agreement requires RPG to ratify final funding allocations. So the process this year, applications were due in December of 2020. TRC held 3 public meetings in January, February, and March where they reviewed the applications. The TRC voted to recommend funding approval to the directors, and the directors reviewed and discussed the funding recommendations made by the TRC and forwarded their funding recommendations to this board for ratification, which is what this item considers today. Tracy's going to get into a little more on the projects now.
Again, for the record, Tracy Wheeler, City of Reno and Washoe County Home Consortium staff. I apologize. I can see great up there, but for my notes, I need a little help. So again, as we've provided you the introduction of what the consortium is, again, it's the partnership of the 3 jurisdictions with also the participation of the Regional Planning Governing Board. This year, as noted, the applications, the RFPs typically goes out in the fall, usually about the end of September, beginning of October. They were due in December. This year, we received applications for a project for tenant-based rental assistance, which provides funding for those individuals and households in the community who need rental assistance help, deposit assistance help, and in some instances, we were able to be flexible with utility assistance help. We have our Community Housing and Development Organization recertifications. In addition, we also have what's called a Community Housing Development Organization, or CHODO for short. We have a priority set aside for activities that just those organizations could participate in. We received 2 project requests for that. And then in addition to that, we had multifamily rental housing projects, new development, and rehabilitation. We had a total of 6 projects for those. The total funding request, as you can see, was over $5 million. And unfortunately, we had considerably less than that. So before I proceed, here it is, you have the different funding sources that were available for those projects. One of the things I'd like to point out before I proceed is, in recognition of the fact that we were falling short with funding, I'd like to give a shout out and kudos to all of our developers in the community who took the time to meet amongst themselves, make some decisions, and in the spirit of furthering affordable housing and creating as many units as possible, they actually came up with some recommendations and brought them back to us for review and for the TRC to review, in which they reduced their requests so that everyone could receive funding.
So will you say that again? You've said, in other words, some funding went to every single applicant.
Absolutely, yes.
That's amazing.
It was fantastic. It was a great collaboration. So to give you a little more information, our tenant-based rental assistance, the decision was made in 2019 with the TRC and our directors to utilize the State of Nevada Affordable Housing Trust Fund dollars strictly for tenant-based rental assistance. There's a lot more flexibility with that. If you were to use home funds, which is HUD money, you have some pretty intense restrictions on that, and there's certain income eligibility that goes with that. Affordable Housing Trust Fund dollars allow for considerably more households to be assisted, It's flexible that some households who actually have no income can be helped. So folks can be helped coming out of homelessness. The Reno Rental and Deposit Assistance Program was the only program that came forward. And one of the things that happened this past winter was an emergency rental assistance portal was developed at the city of Reno, where individuals who need assistance can actually go directly there, create an application, and apply for assistance. And this is a screenshot of what it looks like. So we had 2 recertification requests. When you are a community housing development organization, you are a nonprofit, and you also, part of your service provision is the development of affordable housing. You need to be certified as a CHOTO under HUD requirements every 2 years. However, if you are applying for project funding, you need to certify in that year. So one of our individual groups that came forward was the Ridge House. They've been a Nevada nonprofit since 1982. They met all the criteria, and they've had a number of projects that have been very successful. Cambridge and Keystone are 2 group home rehabs that they've done, and a current one they're working on right now is Vine Street, which will allow for up to 9 veterans to be provided with housing. In addition, the Northern Nevada Community Housing came forward with a request for recertification. Coincidentally enough, they've also been around since 1982. They did meet all the structure, capacity, and experience to continue being a CHOTO, and they have been highly successful. A number of projects that they've done throughout the community: Juniper Hills, Hillside Meadows, Plaza at 4th. The most recent is Sierra Cove. It actually was previously called Gray Haven, and that project is located in Sparks. So in addition to the recertification for those CHOTOs, CHOTOs have an opportunity to apply for up to 15% of our home grant. It is set aside strictly for their activities. We did have 2 applications. However, one withdrew, and part of that withdrawal, the decision was made that they were going to let one project sort of move forward. The expectation was that project would take the entire CHOTO set aside. However, they asked for a pre-development loan, and per HUD guidelines, and this is where the math of the HUD program gets a little tricky, you can only utilize 10% of that 15% set aside for a pre-development loan. That pre-development loan is what they call kind of seed money. It allows your CHOTOs to work a little bit more on their project development, perhaps secure sites, do engineering, plan reviews, things such as that. The nice thing with the pre-development loan is, for some reason, if the project doesn't launch, it can be converted to a grant and is forgivable. And then in addition to our CHOTO projects, we had the other multifamily projects. So the first one is Atterbury Senior Apartments. They have been recommended for a $50,000 loan. It'll be a 30-year affordability period. It's located out on Lemon Drive and Military Road in Reno. And as you can see on the map, it's going to be 168 units of affordable housing. We will have 6 units that are designated home units, which means they will be further deed restricted with our loan for a period of no less than 30 years. And they will be deed restricted to be provided to households at 50% of the area median income. We have Centennial Park. It's going to be a rehabilitation project. It's located on Whittakin Road. It's 40 units of affordable housing. It is a 95% Section 8 project. So the entire project is affordable. They're going to be doing a little bit of energy efficiency, some site and safety upgrades. They're, in essence, going to be giving the building a little bit of love. So they're going to bring things a little more current, make things, through the energy efficiency, considerably more affordable for their households there. They have been recommended for a $50,000 loan for a 35-year affordability period. And you're going to see affordability periods alter a little bit. A lot of the projects come forward and they offer more than what we set as our minimum. At a minimum, the consortium requests a 30-year affordability period, which is in line with the low-income housing tax credit requirements at the state. Our next project is the Orovada Street Senior Apartments. It is going to be 40 units of affordable housing. They're going to serve 30 to 50% area median income households. And they're going to have 11 of their units will be deed restricted as home affordable units. You see they're getting a considerably larger loan. It's $1,285,000, the 50-year affordability period. This project, as I mentioned previously, that all the developers kind of came together. This project needed one of the biggest subsidies out of everyone. The home funds are part of your gap financing for their subsidies. There's a variety of layers that go into funding affordable housing, and our program helps, as I mentioned, close that gap. And they needed the biggest amount of subsidies. When you are addressing affordable housing to income, area median incomes as low as 30%, your gap is pretty big to make those projects work. So this is our big funded project for the year. Pinewood Terrace is also another rehab project. They've been recommended for a $50,000 loan, 35-year affordability period. It is 50 units, 100% Section 8, all at 60% area median income or lower. Again, they're going to do some energy efficiencies and some ADA and safety upgrades. We have Vintage at Spanish Springs Senior Apartments. It is located out off of Pyramid Highway, Eagle Canyon and Neighborhood Way. The map and the address says Sparks. It is in the unincorporated part of Washoe County. It's going to be 196 units of affordable senior housing. They're going to serve 60% AMI or below, and 5 of those units will be home restricted to 50% AMI or less. And lastly, we have Washington Station. It's located on Washington Street in downtown Reno. About 205 units of affordable housing. They're going to serve 60% area median income or less, and there will be 5 studio units that are going to be restricted to 50% AMI or less. And then just to recap for you. Again, we have Adivare, Centennial Park, Orovada, Pinewood Terrace, Spanish Springs Senior Apartments, and Washington Station. If you have any questions, I'm available.
I'm going to just start. That was excellent. Thank you so much. And hopefully that put to rest a few of the questions people might have had. Just to get us started, do you know what the current AMI is, roughly?
It depends upon household. So off the top of my head, I don't have that. HUD just released that data just this past week.
Do you know what it was in a previous year?
But they don't. They typically don't release area median income. They actually release these lower percentages of. What I can tell you, at 30% area median income for a 2-person household, you're looking about $20,000 a year. It's not very-
20,000 that they would earn
Yes,
for, and that's at 60%?
that's 30.
At 30.
Yeah.
So we can do math here quickly, but okay. Okay, well, let me open it for questions. I'm sure people do have some.
We actually have a short follow-up from.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
okay.
there's a follow-up.
Oh, I see.
Sorry.
Thank you, sorry.
No. Yeah, we're going to switch gears a little bit on you and talk about the tracker. So the tracker really started this year, but it's kind of been in the back of our heads since 2019 with the regional strategy of housing affordability. There are 35 actions outlined to address key regional housing issues, and within those, we found that the tracker could address 2 key action items. And the first is maintain a centralized regional inventory of residential land and assets, and the second is item 4.2, establish a regional preservation early warning system. TMRP was tasked with many different action items, but these 2 are what we're getting started on for now, but we plan to get to the others soon as well.
Could you remind us though, Shawnee, where do we
Yeah.
find 4.2 and .3? It's within the,
It's within the strategy. Yeah, there's a roadmap. It's the second part. The first part is a community profile, which looks at our region, and the second part is that roadmap for housing. So this is a quick online view. I'm sorry, it's a little small. On the left is zoomed out, and if you zoom in, that's on the right where you can see a little more information. It's an inventory of affordable housing as we have so far. This includes subsidized housing projects, number and type of units, and other contract details. The work is currently ongoing. We've been working with the Nevada Housing Division as well as Tracy from WCHC, and we're compiling data, making sure it's accurate and helpful for others. We're going to also work with RHA and continue to work on the second action item, which is the early preservation warning system. Currently, we believe we have this inventory, but we really need to bring in the other housing entities and other jurisdictions to really talk about how to make this system work. So you can find the tracker at tmaffordablehousing.org. We created this a couple of years ago for the Regional Strategy for Housing Affordability. We revamped it, so we included the TMRPA 2017 housing study, and we also included the 2019 regional strategy. So that's where you can find that community profile as well as the roadmap. And then the tracker is that fourth tab over, which is a little hard to see, I apologize. And you can also find strategy materials and a little bit more. So we do not need any motion on the tracker. That was more informational. If you have questions, I'm here for those. And then the proposed motion for the home funds is on the screen for you, or on page 14 of your packet.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make a comment on the tracker, and then I do want to have some general discussion. This has been around for a while, but it's a huge revamp, and it's extremely user-friendly. So you go to the link, and in a minute, you can see where all the affordable units are in our region. I thought that was remarkable. And you can get information, as you showed the table, of how many units they are, and maybe you could just read some of those items off, because there's a lot of information about each of the places.
Sure, yeah. Type of units, the zip code, let's see, project name, the type, so maybe how many bedrooms. Yeah, and we're going to maybe include some more information later. Right now, we need to work with other housing entities just to make sure that we're sharing the right kind of information. And yeah.
So when you first did this, or last week, I needed this information, so I actually went in and added up by hand all the units, and it appeared to me to be about, I want to say 6,700 roughly units. Is that correct? Something like that?
Right now, I believe that there might be closer to 8,000.
8,000?
Yes, only because we actually are still completing. This is as
Okay.
much as we could compile at the moment.
Okay.
But we're trying to keep collecting data, keep working on it. I think we're getting close, but yeah, around 8,000.
You think you're 90% there?
Yes, yeah.
So what I just want to say is I think often we are what they call data rich, information poor, meaning there's lots of numbers about lots of things, but we don't know what to do with them or how to make meaning of them or how to use them. And so it's a whole bunch of numbers, and people do get frustrated with just a bunch of data collection. I think this particular one puts the power right to the people or the jurisdictions to understand one of the key things we've been worried about, which is some of these older units, when do they expire? Because I don't know about Sparks and Washoe County, but I can tell you in Reno, something is starting to expire, and we start getting calls, oh my gosh, I just got a notice I'm being evicted, or they're going market rate. And we're like, why do we not know this? And I think we've discussed this at this board before. And this has all of the dates, and it provides, I think, an opportunity for intervention. You know, what that looks like and who can come in or how we can convince. We have been able to convince some in Reno to stay affordable, because think about our current affordability crisis, and then now add people that it's like aged out. Now, where do they go? Like, it's just a compounding issue. So I was amazed. I told Jeremy that he actually should think about doing a news release about this, because one thing about this agency is we're pretty low profile in the world of things. And a lot of people don't know the great products that come out of this organization. And I even suggested that he do a video about it too, because I think this is information people want to know and need to know. So with that, I'll just open it up to the board. Do we have questions on the earlier presentation, the second presentation? Yes, Ms. Bybee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I love the idea of the tracker, because getting and compiling that information is so critically important. But as I'm reading through it, Is it a tool you envision not only those of us, on the government side and developers and builders, but is it something the general public information for your agencies that are helping house people, obviously, would need to use it, but the general public, realtors, how do you envision this data, where it will go and who will know? Because people just looking for affordable housing right now, they can't find it. Is it something, if I was moving into town and was looking for someplace affordable, is it a site that the average person can go to, or is it more through agencies that you see this happening?
So that's actually one of the reasons we revamped the site, is because we do have that housing study, we do have the strategy. And so the tracker is just another piece to that site. So I do think, the press release and getting it out so that the public can utilize it as well as what we envision.
Okay, and then I just had a follow-up question, if you don't mind. Can you explain the establishing a regional preservation early warning system? Is that for older units? Is it preservation of the housing itself and knowing when action needs to be taken to preserve that housing? That's where my mind's going, but I don't know if I'm totally off base.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Jeremy, I think you can explain kind of the outlook on that a little better than I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Jeremy Smith for the record. Yes, we don't know exactly how to put it together, but we're going to bring together the team, Reno Housing Authority, Tracy, folks from the state, folks from the jurisdiction in the next week or two to start that conversation so that we can create that early warning system. We do track the date that these units are set to expire. We initially had that in there, but we got some feedback that maybe there needs to be a way to register for the information to have that. We don't want folks to take advantage of that also on the other side. So we're going to work with local partners to come up with some kind of alarm system to Councilwoman Dewar's point that we will know when these things are up for, losing their subsidy, basically.
Yeah. Other questions, comments? Ms. Breckus?
Thank you. I think there was a bill about tasking the Housing Division with some notice provisions on that. I don't know if it got signed. I don't know if anyone else was following that, but I came across my, review of the legislature. I think it should be called the Subsidized Affordable Housing Tracker, because I know there's others that meet a definition of affordable that are out there in market. And also, we have a lot of developers come forward and say, I'm creating an affordable product, but it's a market product that they, represent as affordable, and they're not going to be on this list because it's subsidized. And I think that's a very big distinction. If you're moving to town and looking for somewhere to live, you've got to meet some eligibility to get there, and not everyone. So anyway, that's an aside. I really wanted to focus on the questions. First of all, the allocations that we got this year, Ms. Wheeler, and congratulations on joining our team. We're happy you're here. Were those enhanced by the federal intervention in response to the pandemic, or was that just our regular appropriations on the first slide you had of all the dollars?
Again, for the record, Tracy Wheeler, that was just our regular money.
Okay.
That does not include any additional funding that might be coming from, I'm sure you've heard from the American Rescue Plan. There has been an announcement of funding allocation that would be provided to our jurisdictions. However, we have not received an official notice of our grant, nor have we been provided any official guidelines on how we can spend it.
Okay. And then, while it seems like $50,000 is not a lot in those projects of home money, that's the trigger that makes them, these privately owned projects, tax exempt for property. And so that just bringing those dollars in is really more of value for that than the 50,000. Is that right?
Absolutely
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
One of the things that's unique to Nevada is that for affordable housing projects to receive a property tax exemption, they must have an allocation of federal home project funds. And so Ms. Barkas brings up a very valuable point. While it does not seem like a lot of money, $50,000 does enable those properties to obtain that waiver, and that actually allows those properties to become much more sustainable when they're actually renting and continuing their work.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. It justifies, spreading it out. And then the next one is the Chodos. How many Chodos do we have in this region? Is it just those two?
No, I believe there are, this doesn't sound that great, I believe there are 4.
Yeah.
Ridge House and Northern Nevada Community Housing do seem to be the ones that are coming to the table a little more often. Community Services Agency
They still have
is a
one?
certified CHOTO, and there's just another one that's escaping me right now, I apologize.
That's okay. It's just, you know, the capacity out there, non-government capacity, is just has not grown, and that's a hard thing that I think we're seeing, particularly as we are addressing with the homeless transitional housing needs. But the CHOTO, can you, it looked like one of them dropped out on recertification. Is it from when they went to the managers and came up? Was that what I saw? I didn't understand that.
No, their recertifications did go through. One of them withdrew their project.
Oh, they withdrew their project.
We had
Okay.
two projects come forward. One was to do rehabilitation of a group home. The other project for the Northern Nevada Community Housing, Truckee Heights, it was a request for well over $1 million because, again, we didn't have sufficient funds. The two CHOTOs came together. Northern Nevada Community Housing had requested the entire pool of CHOTO funds as a pre-development loan. Unfortunately, unbeknownst to them, they couldn't ask for that much money. And then when left up, no one sort of changed their stance. They wanted to honor the decisions they had all made collectively together.
And they can only get, thanks for that, they can only get so many years in a row of like the early money, is that right? Isn't there some support?
There's operating funds that they can receive, and they are capped at how often. they
Okay,
can
and they're-
come back for that, or for technical assistance.
Okay, that's why you keep wanting to bring more on, and it's been, kind of disappointing to me, I'll be honest, that we haven't seen any form. And I think that needs to be the next step, in my view. We're finally figuring out who's expiring, but we need to get that other capacity. And then the Lemon Drive project, was that on land that the city of Reno committed over at one point? Do you recall?
I am not sure.
Okay.
And let me I don't know if you have any more questions.
That's it.
Ms. Breckus, but okay. Mr. DeHare, you asked a really good question. I don't know if you got your answer, but I think you should ask it again.
Thank you. I actually did. In a sense, I did. I mean, looking at this, I'm trying to understand just percentage-wise of how this works. And I know regionally, I have to say, how good affordable housing anywhere in our region is good. So please do not mistake my question. I'm just wondering if there's something we can do more to try to get our Sparks people involved. But I'd like to say, I think I understand, and I
Well,
hear it comes in waves each
My
year.
sense of it is it's basically developer-driven. I mean,
Yeah.
they have to apply. So if a developer in Sparks did not apply, it's coincidental, as you say, where they happen to choose.
Yeah.
And there are these census tracts, right, that are selected, like for a new affordable housing unit. I know over in Reno, I've worked with a lot of these developers. They can only do it over here in this particular parcel that have been identified by HUD.
For
That-
the community development
Yes.
program, yes. For the home program, they are not required to do that. However, there are enhancements when they
If they
are
have that.
applying for funding, if they're in certain census
Yeah.
tract and certain
So maybe
census
one of the
block
things in
areas.
Sparks is just to maybe make it better well-known, and also, have a special workshop on it, or, have a pre-application meeting with developers and Sparks. I mean, I'm just brainstorming here, but.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my brain goes a little bit, is trying to learn, and I definitely will sit down with the Don and get some answers here. But
If it may help, Truckee Heights, the project that's been proposed by Northern Nevada Community Housing, is in Sparks.
I
The
did see
project
that, yeah.
location is on Prater Way, so they currently have been recommended for a pre-development loan to further review that project, and with the intent of, if that project does move forward, they would come back next year to ask for additional funding to make it happen.
And then there was one near Sparks, right, in Spanish Springs?
And then, actually, and right now, that same group has the Gray Haven project. It's now called Sierra Cove. It's on Gray Haven in Sparks as well. So we do have a number of projects that are currently happening in Sparks. I bring that up just so that, to assure you that Sparks isn't being forgotten about.
No, I understand, and I get that it's driven. I do have a couple other quick things so thank you, and I really think that the idea of that tracker is pretty awesome. Does that just show where things are available, or does it show availability, or just what's there? Because someone looking at it, it's great to know there's affordable housing, but if they're not available, so you said almost 8,000, obviously we don't have 8,000 homes available.
Before I hand this over to Shawnee, there actually is a link on the Nevada Housing Division site where potential renters could go and they actually could find, you put in your own specific criteria that you're looking for. So there's two tools that we have going in tandem with one another. And then one at the state actually allows individuals to truncate down what they're really looking for and find available units as well. So it's similar to that, but there is another tool for that's really guided towards individuals.
So just to follow up on that, are you saying, so let's say they need 2-bedroom versus 3, and they have a pet, you could screen by those kind of things?
I believe so. I believe they also can screen by other criteria, such
Or
as if they're
sort.
looking for like Section 8 housing or things like that.
Okay, cool. More? Did you have some more?
I have one more, and it has to do just understanding the rental and deposit assistance, which I think all these things are fantastic. However, does that mean that's just for Reno citizens, or does anybody get to do that? Because I think it's through Reno Housing. So is that something we should be sharing as well, or is that just something that,
Something for Tracy, I think.
cool.
So the Low-Income Housing Trust Fund dollars are also known as the Affordable Housing Trust Fund dollars. That's funds that are available to all citizens within the Washoe County area. So that's Reno Sparks and Washoe County residents. There have been a number of programs in place. I did bring with me Monica Cochran, who actually oversees our rental deposit program, and she can speak a little more clearly as to who the clientele that's eligible for that for you.
I mean, do our people from Sparks need to move to Reno? It's kind of a half joke, but.
Good afternoon, Monica Cochran for the record. Those funds are available to all households who are under 60% area median income within the county. So Sparks, unincorporated area, and City of Reno.
Very good to know. Okay.
Is it just one of those things that coincidentally is just called Reno, but it's really about everyone?
It's
Like the
about-
Reno Housing Authority or the,
Kind of, and in the Deposit and Rental Assistance Program has different funding sources. So some of them are available only to Reno residents, some are available to certain income limits, and some are available countywide. So when applications come in and they come in through our new portal, they go through kind of like a mechanism to, I'm sorry, I didn't think I was going to speak today, but they go through a vetting process, I guess, if you will, and then staff determines what funding source is appropriate for those particular funds.
So for this funding, this $600,000, this is more general for
It is.
anybody in the community that
Anyone
would
in
be
the
interested.
community, except you have to be a area resident for 2 years, and your income needs to be 60% or less.
Thank you. Perfect.
cool. Further questions? Nothing? What's that? Oh, Kurt, thank you.
If I can get my, oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. I'm just curious, and this is kind of to piggyback off of what Councilwoman Bybee had mentioned. Is there a concerted effort to get this information into schools? A lot of our schools act as, community hubs for their areas, and I know a lot of the schools I represent are lower income. A lot of folks have endured a level of homelessness or transiency during this time. So I'm just curious if that information is intentionally getting out to our school district. Our principals are amazing at, once they're aware of these types of things, they'll let families know that they're available and to take advantage of them.
As far as the tracker, we do have a resources tab as well that we want to direct people to. So I think with this press release and really, expanding our outreach and engagement in this, we're going to definitely be reaching out. So we'll make sure to expand. I'll keep it in mind. Yeah.
Other questions? Yes, please.
I just wanted to thank you guys very quickly. The project out in Spanish Springs is a continuum of care project, which is wonderful for seniors. It's a sort of the beginning of that transition moving into managed care. And we've recently changed our code. We approved this project out in Spanish Springs because it sits right next to Cascade of the Sierra. So I'm very thankful. By the way, this is not anything new. My wife and I, with respect to affordable, my wife and I applied in I think it was early 86 or it might have been late 85, and finally got it in late 86 for a Nevada housing loan, which was 9.99%. during the interest rates of, 17, 18, 19%, when you just could not afford a house. And we qualified for one of those loans. So the situation of affordable housing, this is not new. It is not new.
You know-
So again, thank you for the hard work. Thank
I
you,
think to
Madam
that point, everything is relative, right? I mean, and they always say where you stand depends on where you sit. I mean, what time era you're in,
Well, I
what's
think-
going on.
I think perhaps the better
Analogy?
way to say it is, the only thing new in the world is the history that you don't know.
Okay. All right. Words to live by Commissioner Harkung. Okay. Let me, I don't see any other questions, so I think we are ready for a motion on this. We only need the motion on the home funds, not on the tracker. The tracker is a work product of our staff. So I am looking for a motion, and I would
Madam-
like it if we could adopt all of the items, if possible.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I'd be pleased to make a motion. I move to ratify the Washoe County Home Consortium funding allocations as described in this staff report and accompanying attachments.
Right, and I think I heard a second from Mr. Hartung? Okay, all right, well, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously, and we are off and running for this year's home funds. Thank you so much for being here today. We're going to shift our attention to item B, which is a public hearing, and I'm going to have Jeremy Smith introduce this item and talk a little bit about it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Item, make sure I get it right here, 7B, it's a public hearing, Regional Plan Amendment, RPA 21-002, Woodland Village, possible adoption of RPGB Resolution 21-06 regarding a request to change 6 acres of an 18.5 acre parcel, it's APN 556-29035, from Tier 3 land to Tier 2 land. We are going to have Nate Kusha, Policy Analyst at TMRPA, take us through this presentation. I did want to just preface this with, this is the first tier change request that we've received from Washoe County. And, we had discussions with staff in an attempt to get this, correctly following the policies of the regional plan. We think we've achieved that, but there was a little bit of confusion, so it's not maybe as clear as it might be in the future. And so we definitely helped out because that was the first one, but we do take the tier boundaries very seriously, and we've developed this criteria-based approach to how those are managed, and we want to make sure that we enforce that as policies of the 2019 regional plan. So
So I
we've
think
done
you're
that.
saying it's a learning process for the jurisdictions, and you are our coach.
Yes,
And-
yes, I'm trying.
Okay, okay. But you're going to have us fly after a while on our
Pretty
own.
soon we'll be flying on our own.
Okay,
Yep,
cool.
I'll just be in the tower.
All right, all right. Back to you.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, board members. For the record, Nate Kusha with TMRPA. As mentioned, this is a regional plan amendment for a tier change in the Woodland Village area. So this proposal is a regional plan amendment, and that regional plan amendment is to change roughly 6 acres of an 18.5 acre parcel from Tier 3 land to Tier 2 land. So the amendment is accompanied by a Washoe County Master Plan amendment to change the land use on the same 6 acres from rural to suburban residential, as well as change the land use on an additional 10 acres, from suburban residential to rural residential. Regional planning staff, as well as the Regional Planning Commission, have found that does meet all the criteria and conforms with the 2019 regional plan, and recommend adoption to the board.
So let me ask a question, and I may be jumping ahead. I know we talked about maybe going over what those criteria are.
Yep, that's coming your way.
Okay.
To your point, Ms. Stewart, we're going to do a quick overview of what the tiers are, how they were set, and kind of what we really intend the tiers to do and be a mechanism for. So with that, the tiers were put in place to refine the Truckee Meadows service area that you all know so well. We learned through the regional plan update process that the TMSA is quite capacious, and we instituted the tiering mechanism as a way to limit premature expansion as required by state law. So in order to do this, we tied the tiers to the availability of existing or planned infrastructure and services. And we know that the initial setting of these tier boundaries is imperfect, and we will be further refining these boundaries through further efforts such as the Public Infrastructure Investment Plan, as well as other projects. Knowing that we've put in place a process to ask to change these boundaries based on meeting specific criteria, which we'll touch on later in this presentation. So kind of going over what each of these tiers are, we're going to kind of walk through each of them and kind of the definition for each of the different tiers, just to provide some context for this. So the mixed-use core areas, that darkest blue area in the center of the map there, and that really is area within the TMSA where the most intense development is expected to occur and is the highest priority for investment in our region. It reflects the jurisdictional master plan boundaries for mixed-use, high-density and intensity areas that are generally served by transit and multimodal opportunities. Public facilities and services are generally in place, and intensification in this regional land designation, or tier, is most desired and first in the development priority hierarchy. So moving out from that, the slightly lighter blue, that is our Tier 1 area, and that is the area in the TMSA where moderate and varying range development is expected, number 2 in our priority hierarchy for development, has a variety of residential and non-residential uses, and a majority of the area within this tier is already developed or within close proximity to existing development. Again, public facilities and services are generally in place in this area and is mostly served by transit or has multimodal connectivity. One out from that, that's that light blue area between the darker, slightly darker blue and the gray. That is our Tier 2 land. It's generally a little bit less development occurring in that area and typically at those suburban levels, with some higher density nodes, third in the development priority hierarchy, varying residential and non-residential uses, and again, facility and service provision is currently in place or is planned for in that Tier 2 land. Finally, moving to that last tier within the TMSA, that's the gray area, that's our Tier 3 land. This is generally on the periphery of our Truckee Meadows service area and contains low-density development, is undevelopment, or contains significant development constraints. Development in this area is lowest on the priority hierarchy for lands within the TMSA, and the public facility or service provision is generally not available or not planned for in that area. And then finally, everything else outside of that black line, our Truckee Meadows service area boundary, is the rural area. That is everything in Washoe County that's not in our TMSA. It typically is ranches, agriculture, forestry uses, scattered residences. It's very low density. It's lowest in our priority hierarchy, and public facilities and services are limited and may not be provided from the Truckee Meadows service area. It's not anticipated to absorb a significant share of the region's 20-year growth projection as well. So that was all to take in, but that's just a brief description of all of our different tiers. For this amendment, we're specifically looking at Tier 3 to Tier 2 in the Woodland Village area. So I'll stop there real quick just to see if there's any questions on the tiers before going kind of into the amendment itself. Great,
Yeah,
awesome.
good
All
job.
right. So with that, as mentioned, this is a regional plan amendment to change roughly 6 acres of an 18.5 acre parcel from Tier 3 to Tier 2 land, and it is within the Woodland Village development. The request is needed to accommodate that accompanying master plan land use change, which I mentioned. That land use change is an increase in density. It's accompanied by a decrease in density on 2 other parcels in Washoe County, or the Woodland Village development. The existing Woodland Village entitlement provides for planned infrastructure to serve this site, and no additional infrastructure or facilities burden is being imposed by the change in tiers or land uses. And this development is effectively built out, and the applicant has stated that no further reconfigurations will be needed. So the map on this slide shows the tiers as they currently lie, and then as they will lie if this amendment is approved. And this is less than 1/100th% change in the overall tier boundaries. So here you can see the land use changes that were proposed as part of that master plan amendment, as well as the area of the tier change, which we're considering today in the purple crosshatch there. As previously mentioned, it's accompanied by that master plan amendment going from rural to suburban residential on the 6 acres that the tier is changing, and then those 2 acres to the south there, or the 2 parcels rather, to the south that are highlighted in the red on the left, the green on the right, is 10 acres that is actually lowering density land uses from suburban residential to rural residential. The Woodland Village development is near full build-out, and this request is essentially a cleanup to adjust the few remaining developable areas and to create a better layout for that development overall. The overall density of the development will not change, but it would allow for the relocation of 27 units. And the only area that would change tiers, again, is that area highlighted in purple there, in order to accommodate that suburban residential land use designation. And again, the tier change area in the purple crosshatch is the only part that we're considering here today. The master plan amendment was approved as part of the conformance review for that master plan amendment by the Regional Planning Commission already. So with that, the policy RC10 identifies the 7 criteria that the governing board must consider when evaluating a regional plan amendment. We looked at all these criteria in our analysis, and as there is no net increase in density, there are no intergovernmental or natural resource impacts, facilities and services are already in place to serve the subject area, we have found that the regional planning amendment does meet all of this criteria. So in addition to that previous policy, policy RF5, which is the Regional Land Designation Amendments Policy, sets the criteria to be utilized when a move to a land of higher prioritized tier, you have to go meet all these criteria as well. So even though this is a rather small area to change, we still check all this criteria and take it into account as part of our analysis. So for these criteria, the subject area is directly adjacent to existing Tier 2 land. It falls within the minimum and maximum for Tier 2 land, allows for the relocation of density to a more appropriate area of the Woodland Village development, and the facilities, or facilitates rather, connectivity to sidewalks and streets that are already in place within that development, and ties into existing facilities and services with really no anticipated impact to those facilities, meeting all of the criteria of this policy as well. So with that, there's a motion on the slide, and myself, as I believe Washoe County staff is available over Zoom to answer any questions you guys might have.
Okay, very good, very good. We have, you said this is the first one from Washoe County, but it's labeled number 2, so was there one previous?
So it's regional plan amendment number 2. The other regional plan amendment was, I believe, for a utility corridor. So
Was what?
For, I believe, for a utility corridor.
Yes.
So there's also a regional
I
plan.
recall it.
First tier change for this year. I believe we have had one other tier change, which was the Five Ridges development in, I believe, 2020. I think it was just last year.
Yeah, they're rare. I mean, we just
Correct.
invented this,
Correct.
this rubric, if you will. And with the idea we weren't going to make a lot of changes, you know, because there's a lot of land to develop within the,
Correct.
all those other tiers. But you said there was a special case. When I talked to Jeremy in advance, it sounded like, too, there were different ways to go about this. Like, they didn't necessarily need a tier change. They could have
Correct.
done some other things. You don't need to get into it, but they ended up choosing this route, it sounded like.
I think part of what Jeremy kind of alluded to earlier was we had discussions with Washoe County staff. We suggested some alternative routes, and there was just some general confusion in how to go about this new process that we've invented or put into place with the regional plan, the 2019 regional plan, rather. So through that confusion, we found a mechanism and a way to get to the same end, and while still meeting all of our policies and criteria as well.
Okay. Questions, comments? Anyone? No one? Good?
Hey, I'm
Oh, you
sorry,
have a
I'm
question?
taking off my jacket and raising
Yeah,
my hand at the same time.
Okay.
Not doing either very well. It is very precedent setting.
I know.
And that causes me pause, particularly because it comes from unincorporated, whereas, we went off the bucket. And I think there's still language to the advantage to the region to have suburban growth in the cities. And so it causes me pause. And I think that the conceptualization to make the findings is not getting me there. And I'll tell you why. You mentioned the state law about premature expansion, so that's the big statute. And okay, but it seems modest in that it's supporting that it's attaching on to a built community that'll be a continuation of that. And in return, if I'm understanding the maps correctly, there was some density allocation within Tier 2, which looks to me basically like the drainage off to the, those one pieces. They became rural. I don't know what the subdivision map shows them, it's probably drainage, you know? And so there was some density movement within Tier 2 lands. For me, that doesn't hold water. If we're gonna come in and take land out of Tier 3, out of 3 into 2, and I know it's just a fraction, but it's an inching, I think land needs to go into Tier 3, compensating. So I understand if you're all following, they feel it was a, quote, downzoning of density, but that was within Tier 2. I don't believe that compensates for the big jump of edging away at Tier 3.
Just as a point of clarification, the 2 parcels that were also moving to a lower density land use are also in the Tier 3 land use designation.
But, you know, okay, but they were losing density, right?
Essentially, they were losing an overall maximum density in that land use, going to a lower maximum, so that they could, increase density on another one, really to allow for that relocation of just 27 units. The Woodland Village development is already entitled for that same amount of units, so we saw there was no really real negative impacts of changing the location within that development of these units.
Well, I'm still not buying on that, because I'll take that to the next level of looking at, you know, the tentative map on those ones, and also the development suitability to see what density is real there. To me, if we're gonna take land out of Tier 3 into 2, I think we need to have some land, compensating land, come into Tier 3. I really
But I
do.
think, are you saying that there was some?
No, there was no transfer from Tier 2 to Tier 3. All of the parcels contemplated as part of that master plan amendment, which again was already approved by the Regional Planning Commission, was in Tier 3 already.
Madam Chair, can I weigh in for a second?
please.
Yeah, I would just add that that 10 acres that was to the south or east of the Woodland Village development there, now that that master plan amendment has been approved, it would actually have to seek a tier amendment to redensify if it wanted to go back up. So it does, you know, some of the reason that those lands are in Tier 3 has to do with what you brought up with the buckets, and also with the ability, we wanted to create a way for, a criteria-based way for any applicant to ask to be able to do something and, you know, have to meet that criteria. And in this case, given no net increase, and the confusion was really around that down zoning. We didn't want to do tit for tat. We just wanted to do, if you want to intensify, this is the tiering process. And the interesting confusion that, we tried the other route was, on the 18-acre parcel to the north, there is about 2.7 acres of existing suburban residential on that parcel already. And so our first option was to say, hey, Washoe County planning staff, why don't we just do a master plan amendment to move that over to the other side of the cul-de-sac, because it's already there. And that was the idea. But I think in the conversations, and this is where the coach thing comes in, this is the first try, and I don't know that they really quite understood what we were saying, and instead they offered up the 10 acres down below. And so I think that's why we're here today. So we made sure to enforce that if we're going to take more acres than what is existing on the parcel and intensify them in Tier 3, that we would bring it to this body for consideration. That was the win in the 2019 plan.
I think Councilman Breckus, or I should call you Commissioner Breckus here, or I'm just going with Ms. Breckus. I had the same point. I said there should be a way within our planning framework to not be messing with the tiers. We put so much energy into that. And we're going to talk a little bit later about some other tier changes that we talked about prospectively 2 years ago that we're just getting to today. But I think it is a better approach if you can use your master plan tools that you already have, to just use your master plan tools and not mess around with the tiers. And I think that's what our staff is saying, that's where they suggested Washoe County go, is use your existing master plan tools and just do what you're already allowed to do, instead of going and sort of plowing new territory. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And the thing to remember is that in Tier 3 for residential, our density requirements are, it must not exceed existing. And so given the existing in that area was the rural residential land use category, but there was on the 18-acre, we treat parcels as the atomic unit, basically. And on that 18-acre parcel, there was 2.7 acres of suburban residential. So that was our first, thing. We said, why don't we do this? And again, I think it's new, and we didn't do as good a job as communicating what we were talking about as we could have, I guess.
Well,
Yes, please.
I'd just like to ask if we could have an opportunity to hear from, is it the applicant or is it Washoe County?
Yeah, we'll do all. So let me.
Whenever. Thank
We'll
you.
do all of those.
Thank you.
Did you finish, Ms. Preckus?
well, I'll just say, you know, things don't come up here that often. I think the other one didn't come up here, as I recall.
Yeah, there was.
And so when they do, it's very precedent setting. And I understand you said, well, don't trade it off from way over here, but to me, you're only going to load so much through this mature community, and maybe this is what, can be tolerated. But who's to say there's not 10 acres sitting up even further on a nice flat spot that'll come forward, or in another situation, another part of the valley? I think when you mess with the tier, even if it's small, you're messing with the tier. There needs to be part of a large, comprehensive look at the tier edging, through the 5-year cycle, or some compensating. I didn't see a compensating with this request. I'm not comfortable setting the precedent. I think it's dangerous, and it's, that's, I'm having a hard time with it. Thank you.
Mr. Hartog.
Madam Chair. So this is proximal to Tier 2 land already.
Yeah, it has to be.
Correct, it's
Right?
directly adjacent to
It's
Tier 2.
directly adjacent. Is that Tier 2 land in the city of Reno, or is it in the unincorporated?
Correct, it's City of Reno.
Okay, all right. Sauce for the goose, sauce for the gander. It's okay to be over-allocated in the city of Reno, but it's not okay to move 6 acres into Washoe County Tier 2, which, by the way, we did ask for this parcel. We asked for a number of parcels during this whole entire process that we were denied.
Did you, I'm
So-
confused a little bit about what you're saying.
About Tier 2, we asked for a bunch of Tier 2, and we were allotted Tier 3 during the regional plan update.
I see.
So I don't think
By
that
the
this is.
board, you mean?
Yeah, by.
By our
well,
decision-making?
By the decision-making, right. And so I don't think that this is an unreasonable request. It's 6 acres. And if we base every single decision that it's going to set precedent, then, let's just stop now, and we'll all just walk away.
There's only, in my mind, there's only one precedent, like the first time you do it, right? So this is the first one. I think that's all that it is. And so we're just trying to be thoughtful and careful.
6 acres.
Yeah. So that's a good point.
Size of this room.
Yeah. Ms. Pipe.
I would just like to add, because I was here when we did the regional plan update, and it took quite a while. We labored intensively over that plan and how we could come up with a good way of planning for growth, that was smart, that was, sustainable, that met all the criteria that we thought was so important. But in my mind and my recollection, it's that when we did the tiers, we knew at some point in time, as this region continues to grow, that those tiers would change, and that we wouldn't be moving, jumping over 2 steps to get to one, go way out, Spanish Springs. But contiguous to what was growth that was there, that these were not necessarily set in stone. And we had many discussions over some of those parcels, and some of them in Sparks, where I'm like, well, wait a minute, why is this Tier 2? Or why is this Tier 3? This should be Tier 2. So we did kind of banter around a lot of the different tiers and why they were. And then I supported the fact that I knew at some point, as it made sense, that the growth would happen, and it would happen, we would expand. We'd like to expand from within first, but that would guide us, and they weren't set in stone. So that was just my feeling and recollection when we went through that process of what our intent was at that time.
Okay. You, Bonnie, had recommended, is there a developer? I don't even know if they are here.
We
Yes,
don't-
Madam-
Oh, I'm sorry, you are representing them? I didn't realize.
And we also have Washoe County staff on the Zoom call, too.
Okay. Well,
Correct.
thank you.
We have Washoe County staff. I would recommend letting Washoe County staff respond first, and they can defer to the applicant, original applicant,
Okay.
if they.
Sounds good. I mean, there is no applicant list here that I would not recognize. I thought you were here for item E or whatever, the corridor. So, okay. Yes, so Washoe County staff, can we call them in?
Hi, Julie.
We cannot hear her. Not sure how to get that. Hold on a second, Julie.
You're our precedent-setting hybrid Zoom
Zoom.
thing, and there's going to be a little glitch.
Yep.
We don't allow sparks on that side.
So I guess we'd want to make sure we're unmuted for her on our side and that she's unmuted on her side. Julie, can you hear us? Right, it's just, I don't know if we can hear, her,
We're
so.
not getting the audio.
We found her.
Yeah, she's
We just
there.
saw her a minute
We're not
ago.
getting your audio yet, Julie, but I believe our clerk is going to try to do some troubleshooting.
Okay, do we pause? If you will just pause for a minute, Julie, they've gone to the back to see if they can make a global adjustment to the Zoom.
Madam Chair, I've heard that it is coming through the Zoom meeting from participants at home, just not here in the chambers.
Okay.
Do you and put the mic up? Is that going to get really weird?
Let's see. Julie, can you talk?
The joys of technology.
Oh,
This is testing. I can come down if that would become.
No, we can actually, we like it that you're up there. It's a good experiment for us. But I know, but we are getting,
Thanks being the guinea pig.
I don't know if that's what we're going to get. We have to mute everything else. And then we can use it like this. Yeah, if you're not that far of a walk away, it might be good. If you guys can mute us.
yeah, I think it's going to be easier.
45 seconds down the hall.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Julie. I think it might be better if you just come on down.
So this is usually where I say, how about them Knowles? But which sport team? So many people had asked to see the garden. I thought, all right, we'll announce a garden tour. We are. We're just pausing for while we wait for our staff. But welcome here, and just to refresh you, there was a question asked about, choice of approach, just doing a master plan change, which would have had to come here, doing a tier change, which would have had to come here, why you chose that and how we ended up where we are.
Good afternoon, Julie Olander with Planning and Building with Washoe County, for the record. I think that we discussed the process that we need to move through with regional. This was the conclusion we came to presenting to you in this tier change. I do want to say that this is just a cleanup. They aren't getting any more units. There are 27 units that the developer has. And so when we moved forward with the zone change and the master plan, we had conversations with regional, but had not anticipated this situation coming up. So I think, as has been explained, we are all sort of new at this process and how this was going to move forward. And so the attempt was to do it the way we started with, and unfortunately, we came and realized we had missed a step. But we thought it would be simpler to bring it forward to you than bringing it all the way back from the very start at the very beginning, which would be the way we could have done it. So we went with what we appeared initially as the simpler process.
So that's a very helpful explanation. And when you said the way we initially wanted to do it, could you just say what that was?
Well, there was the thought that we could take it back to our boards and present it that way. But we were already sort of into the process with regional. We were already scheduled to go before the Planning Commission. And so when we spoke to regional staff, they felt like we could just move forward with the governing board to review this portion. And because we felt like it wasn't a significant change, as I said, it's just the same. We're just shifting some units from one location over to another, and an area that would be more appropriate for this development than was originally planned by the developer. I think that it's one of those situations you realize you're 20 years into a project, and then you realize what you originally thought would work, really is not going to work, and this is a much better location.
Gotcha.
There was a conversation about, we already have that master plan designation within that parcel, but it's a little farther to the north. It's sort of just hanging out there in the middle of the parcel. So this 6 acres is adjacent to one of the already planned villages, and so it would be just linked up with the already planned infrastructure at that location.
Yeah. What I was asking when I said your initially, that would have been your revised.
Yes.
But initially, what were you trying to do? Were you just?
I'm not following. Initially, well, go ahead, sorry.
Well, why don't you go ahead? I think.
Well, I just think that initially we thought that we were moving forward, through the process. Then when we got to regional, we realized that there was a step that had been, we'd misstepped in a sense.
Okay.
That we didn't capture the tier information correctly. And then we thought, okay, how do we recoup? How do we keep this process going forward? It's 27 units. The 27 units are on the tentative map, it's all there, but how do we make it work the easiest for everybody involved? And it seemed like talking to regional staff, this step coming before you all would be the step that would make it would be most reasonable.
Okay. So I'm going to put something in parking lot for me, and it may be on the agenda later or maybe a new agenda item, but the parking lot issue I'd like to talk about is when just sort of understanding the policy around tier changes. And as we all get used to it, this is a brand new, again, rubric for all of us to learn about, to work with. What I'd like to do ultimately is have a policy that would address what our preferences are if given these kind of situations. First, go through here, and if that isn't working, go through here. Sort of a stepwise process that would have given you more guidance and help, and also our staff and from all the jurisdictions. So just something for the future that would be great to have now, but again, this is a first, one-off. Mr. Gordon, did you want to address something with this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. For the record, Garrett Gordon on behalf of Lifestyle Homes. Also, Peter Listener is here, who heads up Lifestyle. Yeah, just a couple comments. Thank you for the opportunity. First, this is just a better layout for Woodland Village. When we sat down with Washoe County staff, months ago now and figured out the best path forward, we took the belt and suspenders approach as directed by staff to come through with the tier change. I can say Mr. Listener, Bob Listener, who owns and operates Lifestyle, actually participated in the regional process. And he actually came here on the record and said, I have some land in Woodland Village that should actually be tier 2, not tier 3. And the answer was given that, well, that's why we're setting the criteria to come in and make these changes. If it's 1 acre, it has to meet the criteria. If it's 10,000 acres, it has to meet the criteria. So we felt comfortable based on that direction to Mr. Listener and move through this process, belt and suspenders. We come and do this today. I can say it went to the Washoe County CAB, unanimously approved. went to the Washoe County Planning Commission, unanimously approved, went to the Board of County Commissioners, unanimously approved, went to the Regional Planning Commission, unanimously approved. And why? Because I think all those criteria that you set up, this isn't precedent setting, it's what's the criteria? Does it meet or does it not? And we believe it absolutely does, and it's a cleanup item. No new density, development right adjacent to the street network, existing density compatible. So that's why we're here, and we think all the findings and criteria can be met. And based on the direction that Mr. Listener was given, that come back and do these cleanups after the regional plan is approved.
Okay, good. Does anyone have any questions for either our staff or our developer applicant? Ms. Breckus?
Yeah, for Ms. Olander, I'm still struggling because, you know, if there's going to be a change anywhere and it's small, that's not how you do the regional plan. I mean, justifying it as so small is the regional plan should be doing massive stuff. The 5-year should be doing the small stuff, particularly when you've had such a big 5-year new setting of a plan. We all know the next 5-year update is going to be very minor on the edges. And if someone's in this village, in my view, and they see tier 3 above them, that should have the most concrete foundation that you're not going to see suburban densities right there. So I'm trying to get there, but I'm also trying to find a way that convinces me that we're keeping the integrity of this new plan in place to the degree that I feel we laid out to do. So tell me this, what's your Washoe County plans? What area is this? Is this the Cold Springs area plan?
I'm Julie Olander with Washoe County, for the record. Yes, Ms. Breckus, it is in the Washoe County, this Cold Springs area plan, yes.
And then this Woodland Village, what sort of land use does it have? Is it its own specific plan district or something?
Most of it's medium density suburban, so there's 3 units per acre.
And what is the little parcel above that's in the tier 3?
The parcel above the 6 acres, there's, it's suburban residential. I don't have it in front of me. Do you have that? I didn't bring my file or anything with me.
Yeah, the packet didn't seem to go as deep as
The parcel in question, the 18.5 acre parcel, is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah.
So that has a split land use of suburban residential, as Mr. Smith mentioned, on about 2.7 acres, the rest of it being rural land use.
Yeah, rural and tier 3 together?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, any other?
It's a mix, it's got the 2 different classifications.
Any other comments, questions? Mr. Daher?
And this isn't to everybody, and I was not part of all your guys' conversation, but it did come to us as staff, so we did get to look at it and watch it. And I can just say, for me and what I know, what I believe of our city, this was not, we didn't put this together to make it to where we would obstruct things. This was to help do planning. And so with that said, I think, I mean, we can use the word precedent if you want, but I think it's in the right context to say, this is a great plan, it's usable, which means it's not restrictive, and that it has room to grow as we grow, and us as jurisdictions can bring things here. If this was Sparks, I would probably, my blood pressure would be a little higher than it is right now, because it's not my city, but I would be going, what? This is what we want to see. We are walking through the process, so I don't understand actually all the conversation we're having, kind of.
It's okay.
So, but I want to just say, for me, I will say it again, because I say this to our staff, if we would have been agreeing to something so rigid, I would have actually not agreed to it. Thanks.
Right. All right, are there any final comments? I think might be ready.
Ready.
What's that? You may.
On, right? There we go. It's on. I move to adopt Regional Plan Governing Board Resolution 21-06 regarding an amendment to the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan based on the findings listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, who did the second? I'm sorry.
It was an echo.
Oh, it was an.
It's an echo.
All right, you want to
You
flip
got one
for
from
it?
each
Here.
ear.
I'll go for Ms. Hill here. Okay, got a second for Ms. Hill. All right, any, yes,
Mr. Chair, I
staff?
believe we do need a public comment on this item.
Oh, thank you. All right, thank you. Is there any public comment on this?
Thank you, Nate Kusha. We have no digital public comment, and I have none in front of me. And also, before we go to the next item, maybe it's possible to have Dan from Washoe County just test our Zoom capabilities.
Yeah, we
as
haven't
well.
quite voted, but we will
Yeah,
take a
after that,
pause.
of course, yeah, thank you.
Take a 2-minute pause after that. Were there any final comments on the motion?
Yeah, I'm not going to be there. I just, in response to Mr. Dare's comments, this is about planning. Planning's a lot about certainty. And when you have a 5-year update cycle, that's the time to do the this big-scale planning. It has the most extensive input. It's not developer-driven for adding on to an existing subdivision. I really do feel that if we're going to have a regional plan and we're doing it a little bit here and there for this subdivision, this flat land there, we're not adhering to the tenants, and it is on a 5-year cycle, which is, I think, just 2 years away.
All right. All right, well, with that, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, one opposed. All right, motion passes. Congratulations. Moving on. And I am going to ask, and I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but also on a future agenda item to talk a little bit more about this. And, the points you've brought up, Ms. Breckus, about the role of planning, the role of flexibility, all of these just need to be vetted. And when I say precedent setting, I'm going to go back to this. This is the first time we've had this layout, and it's the first change, and that's all. We're just getting our feet wet, figuring it out. So we are going to go on to a couple-minute recess for about 3 minutes while we test our system. So
So I'm going to burn out of here early. It's our anniversary.
No, I think it's.
37.
Hey, Dan, if you're on the Zoom, can you try talking and see if we could hear you in the chambers?
I keep telling her to cut her losses.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we could hear it. Seems like it's working now. Thank you.
I can't hear me back through there, but I guess that's a good thing.
Can you hear, this is Chris with TMRPA, you can't hear me?
right.
Yes, I can hear you, Chris.
Okay.
So I'm hoping we can get
Dan, this is Jeremy. Can you hear me as well?
Oh, we will.
I can hear you.
Thank you.
I thought we can even move it ahead. I mean,
Awesome. Thanks,
is
Dan.
there a reason? I think
You're welcome.
Jenny's going to be here this whole time. Yeah, yeah. How about that? I'll move up Ormat.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, this could be, are we ready to reconvene?
We are. It seems to be working with Dan.
However- Well, we're still on our 3-minute break.
She's
so-
on, yeah.
Happy
she's-
anniversary, man.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Going to go into his item. I am. Okay, let me ask our staff, are we ready to reconvene, or are you still kind of working on it, or?
I think we're good.
Oh, we're good? Okay. And we're just missing Ms. Hill?
She's on her way back down. She'll
Be
be
on her-
opening the door here momentarily.
Okay, there she is. Okay, all right. Okay, we're going to go with our next item, C, and, yeah, we changed back
Oh, we
because
changed
I
back.
don't see the representative.
Andy's here. Andy Durley's here. They represent, and we have them online if we want to do.
Oh, okay. We were thinking about jumping to item E, public hearing on Ormat. Is everyone here? Okay. Well, then let's do it. So we're going to, with the board's agreement, I'd like to bring item E next, which is the Ormat geothermal. And if we could get a presentation on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 7E is a public hearing item. Regional Plan Amendment, RPA 20-005, Ormat Geothermal. Possible adoption of a Regional Plan Governing Board Resolution 21-05 regarding a mapping amendment to the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan to add a new regional utility corridor and 2 new regional utility sites. The site is located approximately 10 miles north of Pyramid Lake. For this presentation, we have Regional Planner Chris Tolley.
Okay, good afternoon, governing board members. Chris Tolley, Team RPA. As introduced, the case before you is for the Ormat Geothermal Project. And I'm working off.
So
There we
this
go.
one was a public hearing too. Yes. But we wanted to do this first. Is that right?
The Ormat Geothermal proposal includes an amendment to the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan to establish a new utility corridor and 2 new regional utility sites, which is before the RPGB today. The overall proposal also includes a project of regional significance to establish 2 new electric substations, a new transmission line that carries 60 kilovolts or more, and 2 new facilities that generate electricity greater than 5 megawatts. This portion of the overall proposal was approved by the RPC at their May 27th meeting, and the RPGB is not required to vote on this component of the proposal. For the regional plan amendment, the RPC and regional planning staff recommend that the RPGB adopt resolution 21-05, found in attachment 2 to the staff report, which adopts the proposed RPA. And finally, the regional form map is shown on the right. As you can see, the subject site is located approximately 10 miles northeast or north of Pyramid Lake. Oops. On the screen is the neighborhood map, which zooms into the subject area. There is an existing geothermal facility in the subject area, which is also owned and operated by Ormat. Regarding the existing facility, the RPGB and RPC previously reviewed and approved a regional plan amendment and 2 projects of regional significance between 2011 and 2012 that allowed the establishment of the existing facility. Finally, the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe presented information contained in their comment letter to the RPC. Their comment letter is located in attachment 3 to the staff report. The map on this slide shows the proposed facilities and the subject site. On November 10th of last year, the Washoe County Commission sponsored an amendment to the 2019 regional plan and approved the Ormat Geothermal Project use permit and grading permit. As noted in the staff report, the Washoe County Planning Commission denied the use permit and grading permit. However, their decision was overturned on appeal to the Washoe County Commission. The background of the Bureau of Land Management extends back to February of 2019, when the BLM review of the proposed geothermal facility was initiated. The environmental review of the proposal started in January of 2020. The BLM solicited comments from a wide range of entities, including federal, tribal, regional, and local, as part of their environmental analysis. The resulting robust analysis considered subjects including potential interconnectedness of the Pyramid Lake and San Emilio Desert Hydrobasin, wildlife, habitat, and endangered threatened species. Any potential impacts of the project from the federal perspective are addressed through specific mitigations and/or monitoring programs. The BLM's environmental review process resulted in a finding of no significant impact, which was published on May 21st of this year. Finally, as summarized in the staff report, Team RPA recognizes that there are state and federal processes and approvals required that are outside of Team RPA and the RPC and the RPGB's purview. We're reviewing the proposal for the appropriateness of adding regional utility sites and regional utility corridors to the regional plan. The case being considered is a requirement of the 2019 regional plan found in policy PF11. which specifies that all regional utility corridors and sites are shown on map 3, and that a regional plan amendment is required for the establishment of new utility corridors and sites. Policy RC10 identifies the 7 criteria that the RPC and RPGB must consider when evaluating a regional plan amendment. For this portion of the proposal, it is a mapping corridor, or mapping the corridor and utility site. In regards to the criteria, the RPC and staff found that the proposal was consistent and/or conforms with each of these. We will review the analysis presented in the staff report on the following slides. Regional planning staff analysis found that there would be no impacts to the following criteria: regional growth capacities and growth projections, existing and planned development, existing and planned public facility and service availability, intergovernmental impacts, health and welfare of the community. And then from the perspective of the regional plan, Washoe County Master Plan sufficiently addresses natural resources. And the BLM's NEPA process identified the appropriate mitigations and/or monitoring programs, including that the BLM developed mitigation and monitoring measure to address the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe's concerns about potential impacts to the tribe's groundwater and geothermal resources. ORMAT is required to develop and implement a BLM-approved hydrological monitoring plan in coordination with the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. This plan will consist of monitoring outside of the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe's reservation, near the reservation boundary, to ensure that any potential impacts are detected early, and ORMAT must implement any corrective actions as determined by the BLM in consultation with the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. And that was from the finding of no significant impact and the decision record for this case for the BLM. And to continue, regional planning analysis found that the proposal promotes the following regional plan policies: PF 18, regional renewable energy generation; NR2, resilient region; and NR 14, sustainable development. And finally, the proposed motion. So in conclusion, the previous slides presented a summary of the proposal and staff's analysis. As noted, the RPC and staff recommend approval of the proposal, which includes adoption of RPGB Resolution 20-05, which would adopt the proposed regional plan amendment. The motion is listed on the screen and also on page 84 of the meeting packet. This does conclude my presentation and will be available for any questions, and I believe the applicant to Washoe County, and possibly Washoe County as well, would like to do a short presentation.
Would like to do a presentation,
I believe a
actually.
short presentation or just address.
Okay, who is here from the county?
Dan Kalan is on the Zoom call,
Okay,
and Andy Durling. from
here we
Wood
go.
Riders.
This
Here we
is
go.
experiment 2 in the hybrid world. Dan, yes, we can see you, we can hear you. We lost you. So
All right.
there you are again.
I don't have a presentation per se. I'm here to answer any questions that the board may have. I believe Andy does have a presentation.
Okay, and then who is switching him on or off? Is that, oh, what, is voice activated, is that it? Could you just, for the record, state your name? We missed that, and it wasn't listed on your,
Sorry, Dan Kalan for the record, Washoe County Planning.
all right, thank you, Dan. All right, we go to the applicant then.
I have a question for
Oh, yes, please.
I like the way we put staff first.
Yeah.
And I like to ask questions of staff.
Go for it.
Also, because they're not,
Ms.
they're objective. Mr. Colum, is that his last name? Kalan. I heard in the report that we have a special use permit that's been issued by Washoe County for the development. And I want to know, that special use permit was issued about when, and when does it expire if not utilized?
The special use permit would have, well, it still has not been issued as it was pending the approval of all the various board agencies as a project of regional significance, which I believe happened as of 2 weeks ago with the Regional Planning Commission. It was approved by the Board of County Commissioners on November 10th, and per statute and code, our code is, I believe, 22 months in order that they need to start laying and construction within 22 months under Article 810.
Okay, so if they, was it pending the approvals by this body, or pending approval by the landowner, who I think is the federal government, through their processes, permitting processes?
So it needs to go through all federal and state approvals, which still are pending. The special use permit still was required as of last month, required to go through this project of regional significance findings and go through the regional planning commission in order to be approved through the use side of it. Whereas all of the additional regulatory agencies, whether that be the Bureau of Land Management and state, are required to provide their input before this is effective.
Okay, so I guess what I understand is if you have a 22-month time frame and the clock's running and they're still hung up in federal process, they've expired out. Correct?
They would need to come in for an amendment of conditions if they were to expire.
So their
prior,
clock's
or it
running.
would expire.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions for staff? All right, great. Turning to the applicant.
Board members, for the record, Andy Drilling with Wood Rogers, representing Ormat. We don't have a formal presentation. This is, we've kind of exhausted the discussion on the plant itself at the Regional Planning Commission with respect to the project of regional significance. The item before you today is really specific to the transmission line and the extension of it, of the transmission line to the actual power plant sites and the substations that would be associated with that from an existing corridor. So this is really just germane to that extension of the transmission line, and we'd be happy to answer any questions on that.
All right. Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Ms. Hill.
Yes, for the applicant. Thank you, Andy. I was just making sure that we were going to be working with the tribe and monitoring to their acceptable levels when it gets to that point. I just would love to hear a little bit of a detail since they did have a letter of concern.
Sure. Again, Andy Drilling with Wood Rogers. As regional staff mentioned in their remarks, part of the BLM approval process, the decision of record and the finding of no significant impact, the FONSI, it indicated a requirement, a condition of that, to have ORMAT and the tribe work together on a monitoring plan and present that to the BLM for approval. So those coordination efforts are actually ongoing as we speak.
Great, thank you for clarifying.
Other comments? Mr. Hartung?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And not that this matters, I'm highly supportive of these kinds of projects. They're wonderful, in my opinion. They're self-sustaining. The issue always is with geothermal, it's like chucker. It is where you find them, right? I mean, you don't get to just go out in the middle of the desert and say, I'm going to put in a geothermal project here, unlike solar. And so this is just an extension of this project, of what's already on the ground. I love these things. If anybody knows anything about the pepper mill has one on their property, a 6,000-foot well where they extract water, run it through a heat exchanger, and push it right straight back down. It's wonderful. It supplies all of the energy for heating their rooms, heating all their water, including their swimming pool. So I'm highly supportive of this, and I would remind us that the governor has set a goal, like, what is it, 2030, to be 50% renewable? This helps us to meet that goal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good. I'm going to, with all due respect, make a comment to your Chucker comment. And that is that, like Chucker, geothermal, it's where you find it, but it also can run away. And one of the issues with the pepper mill that you mentioned, the city of Reno, we have a geothermal resource not far from the pepper mill. And so one of the challenges is making sure whatever is being pumped is not causing offsite impacts to other people's resources. And I think that's one reason that the tribe sent a letter, is that they have some geothermal resources, and they just want to make sure that they're able to develop those resources and that the two don't collide or interfere with each other. And I'll add just a personal note. When I was much younger, I did my master's thesis on geothermal, and my specific point of issue on the geothermal was this issue of one user interfering with another, and what do you do? And my recommendation, this was very long ago, was that you unitize the resource. So you develop it in common, much like an oil field, so that you're not in competition with each other. And so I think one of the points in getting a monitoring plan and making sure that that is agreeable to everyone is that should any impacts be observed and threaten to affect another user nearby, geothermal resource, that there's a way to mitigate that or work together to co-develop. So those are just, I think, some of the considerations. My biggest question when I previewed this, I asked Jeremy, who got to decide on the monitoring plan? It sounds like you answered that, Mr. Durling, that it's the BLM has to sign off on approval of the monitoring plan. And we also know, I mean, water is, we're the driest state. Water is a key issue. Monitoring of groundwater impacts, whether it's a potable well, a geothermal well, or whatever, has remained a ever-present issue for the 40 years I've been involved in water in Nevada. And so I think it's very appropriate that the BLM requires one, and I'm provided some assurance that it's going to happen, and they're going to be looking out for the resource and different users. So do you have some follow-up, Ms. Hill? No? Ms. Breckus, yes?
I mean, I've been spending a lot of time recently thinking about these overlapping approvals when we get into federal landscape, and we've been seeing it quite a bit on floodplain management. And when do we come in, when it's right for our decision, when it's not right for our decision? And I don't know, it may very well be that ORMAT needs to be down the path of having this big approval to be able to show and demonstrate to the BLM that they're going. Or it may be gamemanship that they want to be able to booster their application to the federal government, that they've got these local government approvals to counter any opposition that may be coming their way, which obviously is, concerns from the tribe. Now, and I'm also becoming increasingly concerned over at Tamwa, the city yesterday, is how we work with the tribe. And the tribe will put a letter into the federal government, but they will not put a letter to us. They don't manage, what my understanding is, one-on-one with us, because they're a sovereign nation and they deal nation to nation. And maybe we, the city or this agency needs to try and get there with some solicitation to them directly and ask them to exceptions to that. But they have a status of nation-to-nation discussions, as I understand it. And increasingly, I'm seeing us say, we'll go do it, the tribe, well, they're not here, so it's not a problem. And I don't buy that for 1 minute, and I think Tamwa's going to learn that real soon with some NDEP permitting. But I think one of the findings is natural resources, and the tribe expressed natural resources concern. The other is intergovernmental impacts, and I'll let Dr. Smith correct me if intergovernmental impacts are just Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County and excludes this sovereign nation within the planning area. Is it?
Madam Chair, Jeremy Smith for the record. We worked specifically with Donna Marie Noel, the Natural Resources Director at the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe, and we invited her to come give an informational presentation at the RPC meeting, and she brought an engineer to help her do that, to talk about their concerns that were in the letter. We also sort of continued the item at the RPC, waiting to see if the federal approval process was going to, was it going to be a finding of no significant impacts or a finding of significant impacts? That was important to us to know before we asked the RPC to make their final decision. Further, I mean, now I know who Donna Marie Noel is. And so I've had several conversations with her, and we've invited her as, to participate in our natural resources planning effort. So they're going to be right at the table helping us to develop our natural resource mapping, cultural resource mapping, and we want to continue to build that collaboration.
That's great. And if I may just continue, my specific question was that finding of intergovernmental impact, that applies to a tribe, correct? Like would apply to Washoe County School District, it's just not the cities and Washoe County.
I believe it should, yes.
Okay. And then the last one was health and welfare for the community, and they're the community closest. So with this federal permitting that we're going in parallel, for me, I think you have to look really case by case where you are in each process. And right now, I see a Fonzie sitting out with an appeal period. And that's where I would feel most comfortable taking the vote to validate the concerns of the tribe. So when does that appeal period end? Do you know if it was issued on, what did you say, May 21st, May 24th?
I believe we have Mark Hall from the BLM on, and I think he just unmuted himself, so hopefully he can answer that.
Hi, this is, for the record, Mark Hall, Black Rock Field Manager, authorized officer who signed the decision on this project. The appeal period for the Interior Board of Land Appeals ends 30 calendar days after the decision record. But under the Administrative Procedures Act, someone could litigate the project for up to 7 years. I will also note that the BLM has a trust responsibility to the Pyramid Lake Tribe. Furthermore, given the trust responsibility, the status of the tribe, and the like, the BLM actually would be overseeing and managing any development of the tribe's geothermal resources. While the tribe is a dependent sovereign nation, the BLM has the trust responsibility and would oversee any development of their mineral resources, whether it's geothermal, hard rock, or whatever. So, in terms of the federal permitting process, other than an resolution from the Army Corps dealing with the basin and closing the loop on an Eagle Protection Plan for the power line, ORMAT has its federal permits. The Bureau, once they come to an agreeable monitoring plan and the Bureau approves said monitoring plan, they can begin drilling and construction. But they have essentially the bulk of their permits. The Army Corps determination may or may not require a permit. I am not an expert in that matter. Thank you.
Okay, that was great, Mark. Just being able to have you participate in our meeting and answer the specific question was amazing. So did that answer any of your questions?
Well, this is where, federal process, really the fine grains of federal process and practice of different people. But did he say a 30-day appeal period?
Yeah, it stumbled right there, but I thought he said 30 days. Is that correct, Mark?
There is a 30-day appeal period in the Interior Board of Land Appeals. But anytime the federal government signs a decision, should you want to continue the challenge in district court, the Administrative Procedures process, or the Administrative Procedures Act, is open for 7 years. And that goes for any federal decision.
Okay.
Most likely, if someone tried appealing at district court level at this stage, they would say you would have to go to the Interior Board of Land Appeals, IBLA first.
Okay. All right. Well, any other questions from our commission? Again, Mr. Hall, Mark, I really appreciate you being here because that's outstanding information that really helps us, I think, come to a decision. and arrive at some kind of certainty and better understanding of what comes next. And I'll just say for myself, I've had to get a number of BLM permits in my life, and I've never found a local government decision to influence their thought process very much at all. Is that correct, Mr. Hall?
The appropriate time for the local governments to be involved is when we are doing our National Environmental Policy Act analysis. We sent a letter for this project to Washoe County, and there was no real follow-up on becoming a cooperating agency. We will be sending, if we haven't already, there is a geothermal project coming up with ORMAT in the Gerlach area. And once again, we will invite Washoe County. I'm the field manager for most of northern Washoe County, north of Reno. And by all means, I welcome the participation of Washoe County, the Regional Planning Commission, in what we call the NEPA process to the extent that they can participate. The advantage to participation in the NEPA process is you have a seat at the table as we are planning. Washoe County was a cooperator for the Burning Man environmental impact statement, and I think the various divisions of Washoe County helped us improve that overall decision and make sure that we were able to capture both the good and the bad impacts from that event and to come up with appropriate mitigations to the extent federal law could do that for Washoe County, City of Reno, Sparks, those areas.
So I think you're saying it does matter, and that's really good. And I really appreciate that, and that if you choose, you can be a cooperating agency and have even a more significant seat at the table than just a commenter. So that's really, really good, and I appreciate that info. Let me just ask, I just want to clarify from our staff, regional planning staff, you put up a map earlier, and what I saw was a small amendment to the corridor. Could you I wasn't sure if it was the white line, if you could just identify that for us again, so everyone really understands what are we voting on.
Absolutely. Yeah, so on this slide, it shows the proposed facilities map. So the two square dots are the utility sites that are part of this, and then the line connecting the utility sites and the existing corridor, and I don't know what the corridor's name is, but that exists in our records. So it's really those three components, the two utility sites and then the corridor connecting to the existing corridor.
And could you just remind us how big each of those squares is and how long the line is?
For us, it's more, the square is just a data point.
Okay.
Because we're inventorying where these things are, and for that purpose, that's what the line is to. When you actually go to record the easement, and I don't know if this is through, I don't know how this is captured at the local level, but for us, it's again a data point, just simply a line connecting two parts.
And thank you, Madam Chair. I know that the National Electric Safety Code weighs in on the width that corridor needs to be, depending on the transmission.
Okay, and it's an above-ground transmission to connect to an existing power line so that you can feed the geothermal generated electricity into the grid. Is that correct? Okay, so it looks like you took the shortest point. I don't know if there was a finding of no significant impact, meaning you didn't run into probably sage grouse, endangered species, et cetera. So that's what I understand that means. Is that?
Chair Dewar, if I may, there's a representative from the BLM who is raising her hand on the Zoom that you can't see, and she may also, or he may also be able to answer your question.
Stop this share.
Hello, this is Ty Subia for the record. The size of the power plant facilities, the individual power plants, are 15 acres apiece, so total would be 30 acres. That was all just to provide some clarification for you.
Okay, great. All right. Well, we've pretty thoroughly discussed this, I think. I am looking for potentially a motion.
You ready?
What's that? We have to have public comment?
Yeah,
I
public
apologize, I
comment.
didn't see anyone here.
No worries. We have received no digital public comment, and I have received no public comment here either.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I move to approve RGB Resolution 21-05, adopting mapping amendments to map 3 of the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan as detailed in the staff report.
okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further comment?
I do.
Yes, Ms. Breckus?
You know, I think as I follow up on my previous thoughts in the go-between with the permitting entity, we're 2 weeks shy of a milestone through their federal permitting. And, you know, I also hear that the permit won't be issued until there's this monitoring plan.
Approved.
So they're not going anywhere particularly fast. And we meet again in a couple months, and by then we'll know whether or not the tribe came forward to object to the FONSI in that milestone that they have before them. For me, that's the, bless you, that's where I need to be to support them in their concerns as, you know, the natural resources issues they've raised, the intergovernmental impacts, and health and community welfare. So if this fails, which I'll be voting against too, I would make a motion of continuance or support one. Thank you.
What was the last comment? If what?
If this motion that I'm not going to support fails, I would like to make a motion, or I would support a motion to continue it to our next meeting.
Okay.
And then we'll know where the tribe came forward on their FONSI. And I think that's very cooperative toward them. And frankly, I think we need to start doing more of that.
Okay. Any other comments or thoughts? Okay, we have a motion on the table. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. I appreciate all of the information, and I particularly appreciate the folks on the Zoom call for your additional information that you provided. Really, really helpful. We're going to go back to item C, 7C. And who will be handling this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chairman Smith, for the record, we're going to have a presentation from Nate Kusha. I'll read in item C into the record. So item 7C is a presentation and discussion of the history of private property owner requests to change regional plan boundaries.
All right, good afternoon, approaching evening now. Board members, as Jeremy mentioned, for the record, Nate Kusha, Team RPA, hopefully you know that already. As Jeremy mentioned, this is a presentation that provides some background and a history on private property owner requests to amend the comprehensive regional plan as requested at the April 8th Regional Planning Governing Board meeting. So starting with what is kind of a PPO. So under the regional planning statutes, only the local governments, the Regional Planning Governing Board, or the Regional Planning Commission may propose an amendment to the regional plan. So what is a private property owner request? This private property request allows private property owners to request that the Regional Planning Commission or the Governing Board sponsor certain types of regional plan amendments, for instance, to change the TMSA, SOI, RLD, also known as the tiers, or previously the future service area boundaries. So a little bit of legal background on private property owner requests or PPO requests. In a court case originating in 2001, a private property owner requested that the Regional Planning Commission propose an amendment to the regional plan after the request for a change in the City of Reno's sphere of influence was denied by both City of Reno and Washoe County. In those proceedings, it was confirmed the due process right of a private property owner to directly request that the Regional Planning Commission or Regional Planning Governing Board sponsor a regional plan amendment. So this right exists independent of our PPO requests, regulations on procedure, which we'll get into, and the PPO regulation simply creates a process to facilitate these certain types of regional plan amendment requests. So a little bit of history. As a result of a regional plan update process and on the heels of a settlement agreement, in 2006, the cities of Reno and Sparks, as well as Washoe County, jointly proposed a series of amendments to the 2002 regional plan, including boundary changes to the Truckee Meadows service area. Following this, several requests for additional boundary changes were proposed by individual property owners in the region, including requests for inclusion or removal from the TMSA, the FSA, and the spheres of influence. So as a result of this influx of proposals, and at the direction of the Regional Planning Commission, between May and August of 2006, Team RPA staff worked with planning directors from the local governments to develop a series of criteria, an application, as well as a process for evaluating proposals to modify the TMSA or the FSA. Following this, in July of 2007, the Regional Planning Governing Board formally adopted amendments to the RPGB regulations on procedure to address private property owner requests to amend the TMSA and FSA with an associated fee schedule in order to help manage the load of private property owner requests. So moving on to our regulations, Section 2.b of the Regulations on Procedure outlines the process and criteria for private property owner request reviews. That criteria is shown overhead here. In addition to this specific PPO request criteria, these requests must also meet the normal criteria for any regional plan amendment, and in the case of a tier change, all criteria outlined in policy RF5 as well. So in addition to the previous criteria that was shown, when evaluating a private property owner request, applications, the RPC and RPGB will also evaluate each application based on public testimony, goals and policies in the regional plan, the adopted criteria, evaluations provided by applicants, the regional planning agency, and local governments, as well as recommendations provided by the local governments. So the criteria for private property owner requests in this presentation is from those 2007 adopted regulations on procedure, which is also the attachment in your staff report. These were the first regulations to address private property owner requests to amend the regional plan, and these have been carried through to the newly adopted regulations on procedure you guys adopted a few meetings ago. The only difference in those are that we took out all references to the future service area and changed them to reference the regional land designations. That is because we got rid of the future service area. So as you can see on the left here, that's a map from the 2012 regional plan that was depicting the future service areas. We've done away with those. We've instituted the new tiering mechanism known as the regional land designations, or RLDs, which you can see on the map on the right. So those have replaced the FSA references. So any private property owner requests now will be to amend the TMSA or the regional land designations. So continuing on with a bit of history, here's a table showing all of the private property owner requests that TMRPA has received, also found in your staff report. You can see that aside from the referenced influx of private property owner requests in 2006 and 2007, which were referenced previously, we've only received two of these such requests, one of which was withdrawn before being heard. The other one was Steamboat Meadows. In 2017, it was submitted to us, and we'll cover that in the next slide.
So this is, I think, a good point, is that other than this one flurry, this is not a common thing to change the TMSA, and one would, by analogy, say, change the tiers.
Correct, and not necessarily to change the TMSA or tiers, but for a private property owner to come straight
initiate.
to the Regional Planning Commission
Thank
or
you.
Governing Board to sponsor such an amendment.
That's rare.
Correct.
Okay.
So with that, we'll just go over Steamboat Meadows really briefly. So on June 22nd, 2017, Team RPA staff received a private property owner request to amend the TMSA by removing a site from the City of Reno's portion of the TMSA and including the site in Washoe County's portion of the TMSA. Subsequently, on August 9th, 2017, the RPC voted to sponsor the amendment, which was then heard at the RPC's January 24th, 2018 meeting. Prior to submitting that request, the applicant informally sought annexation from City of Reno's sphere of influence into the incorporated City of Reno boundary. The request for voluntary annexation, however, was not heard by the City of Reno, as the applicant stated they were provided with concerns that there would not really be an appetite to annex into the city's incorporated boundary due to budget constraints and the potential lack of ability to serve the site. So due to potential issues with the site not being annexed into the City of Reno, the applicant then decided to submit the request straight to Team RPA and ask for sponsorship from the Regional Planning Commission. So during the review of this item, Team RPA's review, the City of Reno recommended denial, while both TMRPA and Washoe County staff recommended approval. And in January of 2018, the RPC voted to recommend approval of the amendment to the Regional Planning Governing Board. Ultimately, the Governing Board voted to deny the amendment due to concerns of being removed from the cooperative planning area, the availability of facilities and services on the site, having no associated project or development along with the proposal, as well as an unwillingness of the City of Reno to relinquish master plan authority on the site. So an alternative approach of utilizing a joint plan for the area was suggested at that time, but ultimately not pursued. So with that, we'll move on to kind of how the PPO requests operate now under the new 2019 regional plan. So during the adoption of the 2019 regional plan, many of you were here for that, Team RPA and local jurisdiction staff agreed that the most efficient approach to regional conformance was really a collaborative one. So private property owners are encouraged to begin the regional plan amendment process at the local jurisdiction level and to seek sponsorship through the jurisdictional route. Ultimately, because hearing requests in their totality, for example, with an accompanying master plan amendment or a project of regional significance perhaps, this really ensures collaboration as projects must be approved at all levels through the process. Per the Regional Planning Governing Board regulations on procedure, private property owner requests are brought before the RPC for potential sponsorship. If approved, sponsorship does not obligate the Regional Planning Commission or the Governing Board to vote in favor of the regional plan amendment, and then the analysis of that private property owner request will be undertaken as previously described. So with that, it's kind of a history and background. There was a lot there. Team RPA staff, as well as legal counsel, are available for any questions on this.
So I just, a preface, I suppose, and maybe I should have said this at the beginning of your presentation, but we've talked a few times about the tiers being new. Like any regional planning process, there have to be opportunities to make amendments. We want to see generally those amendments be sponsored by a local government. So coming forward from Reno, Sparks, Washoe County, I would say 95% of the time. Because we want to know at the jurisdictions, and I'm speaking this now for me, at the Reno jurisdiction, I want to know that if somebody's coming in, we're supporting that so that we can provide services and those kind of things, that there's an expectation. If we're not supporting it, I would be my hope that this body, if we sent this to you and we said, we don't support this, that you would hear us and say, well, Reno doesn't support it. And I would expect the same kind of collaboration, for your jurisdictions, other jurisdictions. So there's still an opportunity, even if we don't support something, for a private property owner to come forward to TMRPA on their own with nobody's sponsorship. It's like kind of flying solo. And what I thought it was important for this board to understand is that we may say, no, Reno's not going to sponsor this. There's still an opportunity to come forward. Reno would be given an opportunity to say why we don't suggest it, and hopefully our colleagues would listen to us, and similarly. So I thought, since again, we're just getting started with this, we should all know how this works, and that we could receive requests to change tiers or do a master plan change, which we already have, that are solely driven by a personal, private property owner. You said prior to now, only 2 have come forward in that 26 timeframe to now. That's like, what?
Correct, two beyond the initial kind of
Yeah, 15 years.
Yeah, correct.
It's rare.
Yeah.
And that's because I think if you're a developer, you want to know your jurisdiction's backing you. So I wanted to make sure this got into our lexicon and we understood a process. So if we do start getting any of these, we know A, that they're rare, and B, we have to turn to our brother and sister jurisdictions and say, what do you think and why did you not support? And consider all of this, weigh this, but they still have an opportunity to move forward. They're not foreclosed.
Correct, and just to kind of piggyback on that, as part of the analysis, as outlined in the regs on procedure, we do take into account the comments from the local jurisdiction when a private property owner request is submitted to Team RPA directly. we, once it is sponsored, we do send it out to each of the local jurisdictions for a 90-day comment period. We take those comments into account, and any recommendations provided therein are used in our analysis of that request as well.
Okay, good. So this was purely educational for this moment, and that's because we're starting to get some requests for changes. So are there any comments? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a really great report. The Steamboat one and some of the ones other are informative, but maybe not instructive because we have a new plan and it's a new day. Or not, we'll see, right? That was part of my concern today. I gather that the attorneys believe there needs to be this avenue for private property.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yeah, please.
For the record, Norm Azevedo, and I guess a little shockingly, I can say I was involved in all of this process from 2001 forward, so whether I like it or not, I have history with it. And I think what's instructive is the initial case, I'll answer your question directly, yes, it needs to be there. The Constitution mandates it. The Supreme Court has affirmed that in a decision that came out in 2005, even though the case had its genesis in 2001, and I'll supply that. It's an unreported decision. The decision is somewhat instructive and helpful to understand the process. As the Supreme Court did in their decision, indicate that the purpose of regional planning is for all the jurisdictions to work together. And they even noted that sometimes the relationship can become a little bit prickly. That was their choice of words, not mine. But it is important for any landowner, any property owner, to have the ability to petition their elected representatives. It's fundamental in our system of government. And when the brief was written, there was a whole section put into the brief that addressed the right of those property owners. And we never want to do anything that would take that away. As far as this board goes, you have the ability to adopt, promulgate regulations, or repeal them as you see fit. That's your job. And so if you want to change it to make it more reflective of the times, I think that's clear within your discretion. But whether you eliminate the regulation or modify it, the advice from this corner of the room will be that they do have a right to come talk to you. And it's not to suggest an amendment, it's to actually ask your sponsorship of an amendment, which is different. So to answer your question, yes, they have that right.
And are they asking for our sponsorship or for the Regional Planning Commission sponsorship?
If I may, either. They can do
Either.
both. The statute's very clear who can actually sponsor an amendment. And the Supreme Court in its decision goes on and addresses that. And so they can start at the RPC, they could come to you. They could go
In
to
other words,
local
they could
jurisdiction.
ask the RPC, and if the RPC said, no, we're not interested, they could appeal that. Is that
Correct.
right
Correct.
term?
Correct.
To us and say, would you sponsor it?
Or they could actually go to Novo and come straight to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
We still get to decide.
at the end of the day, yes, ma'am, you are the boss. This board is the boss of this agency. You get to make the ultimate decision.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
we'll see how it goes. But a couple things I have concern with is we are on a statutory obligation of 5 years updates. And while legal's reading constitutional rights, I think the statutory is very important because it's the one that gives birth to those constitutional rights. And if we're dragged down, bogged down in, you need to do a plan well a year ahead by request, and that's when they seem to come over, when a plan gets a little long in the tooth, I think that they're keeping us from doing our work. And so if there were to be revised regulations at some point, I would probably say if you're in the update period, which must start at least 1 year or 18 months prior to the 5-year anniversary, you cannot come for sponsorship. Also, I think we have had one where it came back down to us for comment. I'd almost like it to go through each jurisdiction, planning commission and regional planning commission, for an up or down vote on, not a comment like, the BLM guy was saying we never heard, but a specific vote, maybe in the county or the affected city, just so that it's a very lengthy, tiring process. Or, maybe you don't want to go there because you do need sometimes that fast track. But, we'll just see. But I do believe more so the timing one is very key because these are busy work and we have a small staff and they need 18 months to get going. And I really find it wrong to not hit that 5-year mark and have a new plan. I
Yeah.
really find it wrong.
Well, most agencies that are required to do a plan do strive to do the plan on the time frame. And when they get too behind, as we've seen in Reno, we were behind on plan updates. It gets very complicated. We get out of sync with the times. And so what I'm thinking about is for a future agenda item, I'd love you to bring that up and we could potentially discuss development of regulations, around the update process and how changes would come before us and the timing, and maybe there's what would you call it, our attorneys, a period where they can't apply for while we're updating the plan. I don't know what you would call that, but.
Madam Chair, if I may, I just think something that we can provoke thought going forward. The Nevada legislature, when they created this agency, determined, and actually passed statutes that allowed this body to amend the plan in 3 different ways. The 5-year update you've talked about. There's an annual update process. You've seen those come through when there's mapping changes or the staff may find, misspelled word or a misreference. And there's also, the legislature went even further, if this body ultimately determines it's in the health and welfare best interest of the community, you can do an amendment at any time.
Okay.
So I think when we discuss this going forward, I think we need to bring all those into play so that we don't run afoul of any one of those 3 rights afforded to people. But there could be procedural rules adopted honoring those statutory mandates that would not require the staff to have to jump through their tail in anticipation of a update coming or something of that nature.
Right. Well, I would love to have that conversation on a future agenda item. I think it would be very valuable now that we have the plan, is what is the procedure to amend the plan, develop the plan, analyze the plan, whatever, and also deal with, unsolicited requests to change the plan, right? So we just know what we're doing and we have a little bit of firmer ground. Okay, well, thank you for that. I think we're going to move right on. You wanted us to accept the report, I think, or?
We can make a motion to, but I also believe we don't necessarily.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on accepting the report and just move on. And so we have item, I wrote on it, D, which is a plan amendment. And it was, to my knowledge, sponsored by the city of Reno.
That's correct. Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Item 7D is a public hearing, 2019 Regional Plan Amendment. That's RPA 21-001, Riverbend Power Line. Possible adoption of RPGB Resolution 21-04 regarding a mapping amendment to Map 3 of the 2019 Regional Plan to add a regional utility corridor to accommodate the relocation of a portion of an existing 120 kilovolt electric transmission line. Relocation, the 22.13 acre site consists of 5 parcels located south of Highway 40, starting plus or minus 330 feet west of its intersection with Edinburgh Drive, running east for 0.4 miles. Of course, we have a map to show that a little better in the presentation. And for the presentation, we have Shawnee Sousa, our regional planner. Thank you.
Hello again, Shawnee Sousa, Team RPA for the record. This item is for a regional plan amendment for the Riverbend Power Line relocation as introduced. The Riverbend Power Line relocation includes an amendment to the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan to establish a regional utility corridor to accommodate the relocation of a portion of an existing 120 kV electric transmission line. For the subject case, regional planning staff as well as RPC recommend to the board that the RPA conforms with the regional plan. The regional form map is shown on the right. The subject site is located in the vicinity of Highway 40, approximately 330 feet west of its intersection with Edinburgh Drive. Here's a little closer look at the site. In March, the Reno City Council sponsored this amendment, and on May 27th, the Regional Planning Commission recommended that the RPGB adopt the proposed mapping amendment to the regional plan and determined that the associated PRS conformed as well. Materials provided by the City of Reno indicate that the special use permit was approved in order to optimize the development potential of the property and ensure efficient utilization of the site by modifying the alignment of the existing electric transmission line that currently runs through the center of the site to the exterior boundary of the parcel. This slide shows the existing and proposed lines. The subject property is located in Tier 2 and has single-family neighborhood and suburban mixed-use land designations. The map shown on the screen identifies the proposed transmission line a little closer as well. Policy PF11 requires that the regional utility corridors and sites be mapped, and that a regional plan amendment is required for the establishment of a new regional utility corridor and site. And as mentioned previously, this case was also considered a PRS in policy RC6 and has already been found in conformance by the RPC. Policy RC10 of the 2019 Regional Plan identifies 7 criteria that the RPC and GB must consider when evaluating the Regional Plan amendment. Staff has found no conformance issues, and the proposal conforms with the Regional Plan in our view. As noted, staff and RPC recommend approval of the proposal, including the adoption of RPGB Resolution 2104. The proposed motion is on the screen or on page 61 of your meeting packet. This concludes our presentation. Team RPA as well as staff is available for any questions.
All right, fantastic. So it's hard to see the map from here. I don't know if we have a Zoom function, but I wanted to, could you just identify some of the landmarks, where exactly we are?
Sure, it's a little south of West Meadows PUD and above the Truckee River and in the Verdi area, if that helps, along Highway 40.
That does help.
Good.
And why do we need to move the corridor?
Better utilization of the site for potential development in the future.
And the black would be where they're moving it from the middle of the site to the edge of the site?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, comments, questions? We're good? All right, I'm looking for a motion. I'm sorry, public comment. There's so few people here, I'm sorry, I apologize.
We have received no digital public comment, and I have none here in front of me.
Okay, so I was looking for a motion. It's right up there.
Resolution 2104-04 regarding an amendment to map 3 of the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan based on the findings listed in the staff report.
Perfect.
Second.
All right, thank you, Ms. Harmon. We have a motion and a second. Any further comment? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion is approved. Thank you so much, Tani. We are going to move into some quick reports. First one from our trustee from Washoe County School District. Mr. Thigpen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're celebrating the end of school year yesterday for most of our schools. I think Incline Village is still hanging in there for a little while, so we're very happy about that. We've got a robust summer school program that we're going through thanks to some federal dollars that we received, which is going to be great for all of our students. Last week, the trustees and superintendent celebrated the very delayed groundbreaking at O'Brien Middle School due to COVID last year. We couldn't do that, so that was great, and that construction project is going as planned. And during the summer months, now that schools are out for summer, we will see an ambitious construction program across the entire school district, lots of capital projects going on and construction. Let's see. We will also be opening our newest school, Michael Inskeep Elementary School in Cold Springs in August 2021, so we're very excited about that. The Hug High School construction continues at an excellent pace, and some off-site roadway improvements are going to occur this summer as well. Other than that, we are also experiencing kind of a wait-and-see pattern with incoming federal stimulus dollars and enrollment impacts for school year 21-22. So we're keeping an eye on that to see kind of what the impacts to communities are going to look like. So that's my update.
Wow, very thorough, very good. Exciting times, though, and I'm sure kids are both happy to be done with school usually. I've never seen kids that weren't ready for a little break. So that's a joyful time, and also gives everyone a break, right, to get ready for the next year. So thank you so much, and again, I am sorry. I mean, you may be with us for the next meeting. You might. No. You think there'll be a replacement?
Yeah,
that quick?
I'm hoping that they'll have a replacement. At the next meeting, I think, is August 12th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my last day on the school board, if my health cooperates, will be July 13th.
Okay.
Yeah.
July 13th.
Mhm.
Okay. All righty. Yeah, we are going to miss you from our board, and we wish you the best. We're going to move on then to item 8B, member and directors report.
Madam Chair, Jeremy Smith for the record. I have a short director's report. I'd like to tell you guys about a few things that's been happening. First off, remember we had Tom Clark Solutions. Tom Clark joined us in a meeting. He's preparing a final report based on the legislative session this year. The only legislation that we're totally aware that we were named in, that we would be affected by, was AB 343. And our understanding is that it did pass through both houses and is on the governor's desk to be signed. And so that means that if he signs it, we'll be working with the RTC and the Washoe County Health District to develop a report about walking audits, food deserts in urban tracts in the Truckee Meadows to be completed before the end of next year, so 2022. So we'll have some time to get through that. Another point, the COVID risk meter. So not only is it at the first tick of yellow, so almost to green, which is very exciting for a community. That's, it's been a long time since it's been down that low. But we have transferred management of the COVID risk meter to the Washoe County Health District. They've taken over.
Yay.
And for the past 3 weeks, they've been running it and doing a fantastic job. We're actually meeting tomorrow to kind of finalize a few things, but they're off to the races. So it's in the appropriate place. Which is fantastic. And now you can see that it's been incorporated into the Washoe County Health District's dashboard for COVID. So it's really neat in that sense. Let's see, we were successful in our selection process for the Natural Resources Plan consultant. We went through a process, kind of a two-step process involved with staff at Team RPA and park planning or planning staff from the 3 jurisdictions. We had 5 submittals. One of them was less good than the other 4. 4 of them were very good. And in the end, we interviewed 2 companies, and we ended up selecting Cardno. And Kelly Sturl is going to be the project manager on that. She's worked in the region with One Truckee River and also with Tumwa. So we're excited to get to know Kelly and get that project going. Right now, we're going to enter into the signing of the agreements phase and developing a scope of work for the project. And our goal is to bring back that scope of work to the RPC at their July meeting and then onto this board at our August meeting so that you can all weigh in and make sure we're on the right track and we're not missing something that is important. So that's happening. Our next meeting will be August 12th. It will be in these chambers, if all goes well. We want to bring an item around tiering. And specifically, there's been a lot of discussion since the plan was adopted, the 2019 plan, about the UNR farm site and the Reno sphere of influence portion being in Tier 2. I'm in conversations with Troy Miller at the University of Nevada. And so we're working to basically see if we can make that happen. They were trying to get a conservation easement on the site. Their legal counsel kind of weighed in and said that they didn't really have the rights to sell that off. And so they thought, oh, well, we're not going to do that. But instead, the Board of Regents took action to basically make it a conservation easement through their vote. So we anticipate that we will be able to get that into the Tier 3 area, which is good because of, obviously, the flood mitigation aspect. Not to mention the food security aspect of having a farming station. Yeah, it's fantastic. Okay, so also, for that item, obviously there was discussion tonight. I would ask that if you have other areas or other concerns about the tiering, that you let me know and we can wrap that into the item so we can really have a robust discussion again in August about that. You can also expect in August to see our Truckee Meadows annual report. So we've received all of that from the jurisdictions. Last year we were a little behind and we brought it in October. So this year we're August. Next year it will be June. So we are working to be on time. We've got enhanced infrastructure information we asked for along the lines of the capital improvement programs for that. So we're really gonna try and take some baby steps towards the public infrastructure investment plan utilizing that annual report information. So that's exciting. Also, it has been brought up several times before, and we've just sort of been waiting for the right time to strike, I guess, but to have a discussion about project of regional significance. One aspect is, should schools be considered, or is there a method to look at schools? And another aspect is, at what point do we rehear these projects, and what amount of change qualifies it to be reheard? So we're gonna work on an item for that as well and bring that back to you. My final point is, thank you for your patience as we work here to this hybrid model. Obviously, we had a little bit of a snafu today. But we got there. It actually worked. It was great having the BLM representative come in. I thought that was good. But I noticed that when we were doing the packet, that I hated the packet. And it was very difficult to negotiate, and we want to make that better for you. So like an online implementation of the agenda and packet information to kind of go along with, we're in 2021 now, right? It's time. Those were really designed for paper printouts. So I'm going to send an email to all of you kind of asking some questions around that, and also asking if you prefer to still have paper, because I know some folks do, and that's fine. We have a printer we pay for to make these things, but we want to make the process easier to access and better so you can get to the materials. With that, thank you very much.
Well, let me just ask, are there comments, questions for Jeremy?
Yeah, I think you covered everything that you asked me to bring up for next time, and I look forward to that project's of regional significance. I had that in my notes about the packet, and at Reno, I go to the City of Reno Media Web portal at home, and each sub-item and everything loaded up is there. That's how I'm able to do it, no paper. But when it's all one flow like this, I cannot do it. So I was going to ask for hard copies until you can get those sublinks. I think that's what I want, actually.
I think it's kind
It
of
helps me,
generic for
yeah.
everybody.
Until you can get those sublinks, I think I want a hard copy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 Well, I usually get a hard copy, but,
You'll have one.
okay.
Everybody gets a hard copy.
Even at Reno. Yeah.
I like using it today, but I don't like scanning.
Scrolling, yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, the attachment, especially in the PPO, was just so massive, all of that information. And I mean, I realized real quick that was not good. So we're going to fix it.
And you know what I always like, and I don't know, on the hard copies, it really is nice to have the page numbers down there.
Yeah.
How you have them.
Yeah, okay.
And I know it's difficult, but I think you all do a great job on how you put the page numbers on there.
Thank you.
That you've always done that, so
We'll keep doing it.
I think it's great.
And then on the other areas, so I know I was a pusher when we adopted the regional plan to relook at UNR to sync up with Sparks. And we gave time for the conservation easement to be discussed and decided, and it was decided, and so I think it's time to move forward. They've made a decision to conserve it. We have lands in Reno that are just south of UNR Farm that are used for application of effluent, and I think they've already asked if we would be willing to bring in our lands, if they bring in their lands. It's kind of like, show me yours and I'll show you mine. And I'm going to recommend it at Reno, that we sort of have this package. It's basically lands that haven't been developed north of Pembroke, I guess is what you would say, all in the floodplain. So, okay, and so would there be a process if other people think of something later that they would like into a different tier or something? So in other words, you told me in October, we would consider sort of this, as our legal counsel said, annual amendment to the plan. And so would that be under this? We would do it in October?
That's correct. I think, ideally, if we can make it happen, we would have a discussion in August about all of the areas and then sponsor the amendment, go do the analysis, and bring back the regional plan amendment to adjust those tiers in the October timeframe for that October meeting, and make that, potentially part of our annual update that we're looking at that.
Okay.
Another member item, could you follow up to see if the tribe files an appeal during this FONSI period?
I sure will. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you so much, Dr. Smith. And we're going to talk about just confirming that our next meeting is August 12th, back here or online as required. Does the online allow a member to participate online? Let me ask that, or is there an issue on that?
Yes, it would. I think a member could participate in a similar fashion. Hopefully, we'll be smoother next time.
Okay, but
Yeah.
look, you are ahead of every single other jurisdiction, so kudos to you.
Thank you.
I mean, this is a great place to experiment, and we're all here. So I think you're showing us the way. Legal counsel's report.
Madam Chair, I have nothing further.
Nothing further. Any board comments, future agenda items that we haven't discussed already? I'm seeing none, and then we're looking for a final public comment.
We received none.
None received. And then any final written correspondence?
We have none.
Always seems out of order to me. I really do think you need to change that to be in front of public comment so they can comment last, right before we adjourn, which we are at adjournment. May I get a motion? Okay.
Second.
And we are so adjourned. Thank you.